It's the top movies and shows of the year. I don't have the rest of the song. It's me, it's Josh Wigler, and Grace Leader's here.
Oh,
Grace
nice.
Leeder, it's the top movies and shows of the year.
My
Here we
favorite time of the year,
are.
Josh. It's my
Oh my
favorite.
Happy holidays, happy almost New Year, and happy movie and TV top 10 lists of 2024 to all of you out here in RHAP. We know scripted TV land. It is the top movies and shows of the year as voted upon by all of you. We put out some polls. We asked everyone to vote on their top movies and shows of the year. And here we are with two top 10 lists to go through as a final look back on 2024. Of course, I'm Josh Wigler. I'm joined here by chief movie critic and tastemaker here on RHAP We Know Scripted TV, the great Grace Leeder. Grace, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I've done a lot of calculating over the last few weeks.
That seems like a great way to spend the holidays, just mathing around.
Record number of votes, I believe, for television shows of the year, as
Wow.
long as we've been doing this over the course of the previous post-show recaps and now on We Know Scripted TV
This
here in
was
RHAP.
This was a post-show recaps tradition. Post-show recaps is done, but the tradition continues here on RHAP We Know Scripted TV. And yeah, the votes came in fast and furious, Grace. We've got no Fast and Furious votes because there was no Fast and Furious movie this year. But the votes came in. They came pouring in droves. And here we've got a really robust, voted upon couple of lists that we can weigh in on today. So this is really exciting. We had polls open. We asked you all to weigh in. This is an annual tradition that we'll do again next year for certain. But Grace, looking at the lists, I do not know what's ahead. No. Only you are the keeper of this wisdom. Just give me like some overall broad stroke takes on like what these lists looked like to you as far as they interacted with any theses you may have been developing about movies and shows in 2024.
Yeah, I think I've said this for a few years in a row now. This is a post writer's strike year in the sense that we had the writer's strike last year, and things certainly like that were ready. A lot of stuff got pushed because the promotional work couldn't happen in 2023 because of the strike. But I also feel like you can feel it in the sense that this is like I would say a very good year of television and movies, but not like I think that we're missing a little bit of like the cream of the crop, Josh. I think like certainly the best shows are the best shows. It might be the best shows no matter what year they come out of. But I think that like when I look at basically anything that I think, especially on the TV list, that gets from like between number 5 and number like 25, if number 25 was in the top 5, like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I think it's a year of a lot of really good TV and movies, Josh. That's sort of my thesis with in each thing, some things that were like, I will say it was very exciting to watch the votes come in as like positions changed, Josh. So I don't think it's a runaway for either list. So
okay. Yeah. Well, that's very exciting to me. So folks, this is how we're going to do it. This is what we're going to do this year. In the past, we would separate these out as two separate podcasts. This year, it shall be two lists, one pod. And what we're going to do is we're not going to give you one list and then pause down and give you the other. We're going to do these side by side. We're going to give you the 10th best show as voted upon by the listeners of RHAP We Know Scripted TV. Then we'll give you the 10th best movie as voted upon by the listeners of RHAP. Then we will are we going to snake it? Are we going to then do like the 9th movie, or should we just like stick with show, stick with movie? Blah, blah, blah. What do you want to do, Grace?
We'll see. I feel like I already have a fun way to segue our first two things on the list. So if I can find clever ways to do that.
But we're going to do the two lists simultaneously because I do think it's going to be interesting to talk about what the year in film looked like versus what the year in TV looked like. And is one superior to the other? Is one more like, has one been talked about more than the other? Like, does one have more mainstream appeal than the other? I think it's going to be really, really fun to get into it by going through them both at the same time. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to go through the full list. Of course, you're going to want to make sure that you are subscribed to We Know Scripted TV, not just to go back and listen to the shows that we did cover that are on this list this year, but also so that you make sure that you're checking out the shows that are coming up next year that will end up being on this list already, Grace, just like forecasting 2025 as we're saying goodbye to 2024. We start strong. We've got Squid Game is at the end of this year, but it's leading us directly into 2025. We've got Severance coming back January 17th. We've got a twofer of Yellow Jackets and White Lotus happening in February. Last of Us is probably the spring, a new Game of Thrones show. Like 2025 is shaping up to be a really, really fun year for TV. You've got your fingers on the pulse of film so much more than I do, Grace. How is 2025 shaping up to be as a year in film?
There's certainly I do feel like it's a little quiet, I think, heading into the new year in terms of what's coming out. I'm trying to think of what the most anticipated movies are. Certainly there's a Paddington movie, a Superman movie coming as well.
Yeah.
What else is coming?
Is it Paddington 3 we're up to now?
Paddington in Peru. Yeah.
Is that the third Paddington?
I believe it's already out in the UK and did get votes on the top 10 movies of the list, but it's not out in
Paddington in Peru.
Paddington, Peru. Yeah.
Is there a chance that this is the fourth Paddington? It's the third. It's the third.
I think it's the
third Paddington.
Yeah, you made me.
I'm just surprised that Paddington 2 was discussed as like one of the all-time. Like it's Nicolas Cage's and Pedro Pascal's favorite film. Their favorite shared film together, as I'm to understand.
Well, one of my favorite actors, Ben Whishaw, is the voice of Paddington. He's a delight.
Is that true? Ben Whishaw is the voice of.
Yeah, I believe that's
incredible.
True.
He's right? It's just so fun to imagine that like handsome British gentleman putting on like the rain slicker and everything.
He's Paddington.
It's 2017. It's 2024. Like there's a long gap between Paddingtons.
Well, speaking of long gap, 28 years later, dropped a trailer. It's coming back. Megan 2 is happening. New Marvel movies, Brave New World. I mean, there's movies happening. It does feel a little quiet in the.
Are we feeling any kind of way that they didn't call it Matugan?
That's bad. That's bad branding. The one that I'm most looking forward to is Mickey 17. Are you familiar? It's a Robert Pattinson doing a Brooklyn accent. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I've seen the trailers for it.
Quite excited. Mission Impossible is going to finish up its run or not. Tom Cruise will probably do more of those. Who cares? Yeah.
So, okay, it's exciting looking forward, but let's look back before we look too far forward, Grace. And we are going to begin our 2 top 10 lists. And how do you want to start?
Yeah, I feel like the movie list, let's start with the number 10 on the movie list, because I feel like it was undoubtedly one of the biggest movies and most anticipated movies of the year. And it does sneak in here at the top of the list. It is the Disney blockbuster Deadpool and Wolverine, Josh Wigler.
Wow, I'm actually very surprised that Deadpool and Wolverine's only number 10.
It is.
This is a huge movie this year. Is it where does it land as far as the box office?
Yeah, just pulling that up. It's number 2. So it made $1 billion.
Don't tell me what's number 1 yet, because I wonder if we'll see it. Will we see number 1 on the list?
Maybe.
Okay. I'm not looking. So if number 1 on the list this year, don't tell me.
I won't.
Number 2 at the box office this year. Number 10 on the top movie list for RHAP. Deadpool and Wolverine, the team up that Ryan Reynolds certainly was asking for. Hugh Jackman returning as Wolverine, not for the last time, probably. One suspects that he will be back in some future Marvel movies now that the multiverse is starting to come to some kind of a crescendo, allegedly, with Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom and yada, yada, yada. Plus, he's supposed to be playing Wolverine till he's 90, I heard.
Yeah, that's right. They said, yeah, that's confirmed contractually. Yeah, I feel like this is an interesting movie because I feel like it got advertised as like, oh, it's gonna save Marvel, like new Marvel, like Wolverine's in Marvel and Deadpool's in Marvel, and then this movie was entirely like a love letter to like all the old Fox movies, and so it did this thing where it was like I thought it was pretty fun. And I liked it a lot, even if I had like very little nostalgia for the movies that it was, giving a love letter to.
Yeah.
But
you weren't like a Fox era superhero person.
Only an Emily. I'm only a fan of Emily.
Only an Emily Fox. That's the only Fox I stand. That's a great answer, Grace.
Thank you.
Very good answer. This is why you stay employed here in the RHAP ecosystem. Yeah.
Thanks. But I don't think it did much for the future of Marvel, which is I think in questionable hands. I think this is I like the movie because it made for interesting discussion of like all the marketing was like it's going to save Marvel, and then the movie does very little to talk about how it's going to save Marvel. So I think that's interesting and fun. I really had a fun time at the movie theater. I don't know it's the most amazing movie, but it made a lot of money and it was fun. So what more can you ask for?
I could have asked for a few more.
Oh,
things.
I guess that's
I could have asked for James Marsden. I could have asked for like them to do like some real Cyclops action in that movie.
Mhm.
There's like a few people who like could have shown up that I would have been thrilled about. But I do think like it was a fun send up to the Fox era. I think the biggest thing for me is like after watching Deadpool and Wolverine, like I know that everybody is really focused, or at least two people are rather focused on getting Channing Tatum a Gambit movie. My strong feeling is, how on earth
Yeah.
are we actually going to do a Blade movie that isn't just Wesley Snipes? Like, what are we talking about here? What are we actually talking about here? Like, are we just too far down the line that we can't trot this back with Mahershala? I love Mahershala Ali, but what are we doing? Wesley Snipes is right there. They've made fun of the fact that there will never be another Blade. Like, just make it a Wesley Snipes Blade or cut bait. That's sort of how I feel. That was one of my biggest takeaways leaving Deadpool and Wolverine.
It's not even coming out. It's when they've completely removed this from the calendar.
Chappelle has a great take that Deadpool and Wolverine is just like a front. Like it's like mob money. It's just like we're pouring like or Blade is the Mahershala Ali Blade movie is just a front. Like we're saying it exists, but we're just like pumping we're just cleaning money. It's a money laundering operation is what it is.
Interesting. Yeah, it's completely off the calendar.
Hiring directors, firing them again. Money going through the Blade pipeline that will never actually see the light of day.
But isn't there like they've shown footage? Have they not? They've
no,
shown like a teaser.
No. Not
that's
only have
fake.
they not shown
that's
footage,
fake. That's
but
fake.
Mahershala Ali has been in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far. He was in the Luke Cage show, but he's been in the MCU now as Blade precisely once as a voice, talking to Kit Harington at the end of the Eternals. And he's like, "You're about to step into a world you can't even imagine." And it's like, yeah, I can't imagine because it's been so long. Are you gonna do this? Doesn't seem like we're gonna do it. Anyway, Deadpool and Wolverine, number 10 on the list. Cool to see Wolvie in Tiger Stripes. I didn't love the movie, but I had a very fun time. And the choral arrangement of Like a Prayer is a great gift that keeps on giving.
Couple like actual laugh out loud moments in that movie as well. I think
a few big ones. Yeah.
Okay.
And our man Tom Wamsgams as a Marvel villain is kind of fun.
That is true. That's fun. Okay.
They could have done more with him, but it was still pretty good.
All right. I will say, Josh, we got a lot more TV votes than we did movie, which is okay. People are going to the movies less. So I do want to preface this that in terms of getting on to the top 10 of the television show list, you had to get at least 260 points, which is the equivalent of 26 people saying this is my first place vote. Which I
have to be so honest with you, Grace. I don't think that anyone's going to understand the voting system because I have been doing this with you for like 3 years now. I still don't fully understand it. Can you explain how these were scored in the first place?
Yeah, if you put your movie
like I'm 3.
If you put your movie, as your number one movie of the year, that movie is getting 10 points in the voting system. Okay. If you put your second favorite movie, that movie is getting 9 points, and then all the way down to the line where if your 10th favorite movie of the year is getting a singular point. So it's just weighted. It just means that the higher up you put your movie on the list, the more points it's getting. And so the higher up people put movies on the list, the more points they get. And all of this to say that's not really true. 26 people did not vote for this movie to like be in first place, but I'm just telling you like the amount of votes we got, which was nearing 200 people submitting ballots. There's a very high bar to pass, a threshold to pass in terms of it's the equivalent of 26 people saying this was my favorite TV show of the year for a show to get on the list. That's kind of just the like, it's not exactly how it works, but that's my example here.
So you would say probably there's going to be some snubs along the way on the show list.
There are so many snubs.
Okay, great. You got them listed out. I love it.
That's what I'm saying. I think that like everything basically, this is what I was saying at the beginning, that anything that's like ranked 11th to 25 could conceivably, I would be like, if that made it less, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. That's one of the top 10 shows of the year. That's what I'm saying.
Sweet.
So number 10 on the list, and this is the only segue I could think of, which is if Deadpool and Wolverine were in this building, there would be murder. So it's only murders in the building.
Only murders in the building, hitting the top 10 TV of 2024. I'm thrilled to see it. This past season of Only Murders wasn't my favorite season of the show, but this is another example, I think, Grace, to your point of if we're looking at like Deadpool and Wolverine as having like a bunch of really solid laugh out loud moments, even if it's not like your top 10 movie of the year. I think Only Murders in the Building, which more often than not is like in the conversation of like very best shows of the year, or at least most consistent shows of the year for me. This season had some of the funniest things happen. I know the great Antonio Mazzaro is probably still laughing about Richard Kind punching Eugene Levy in the face. It's just like an unbelievable moment. But this season of Only Murders in the Building, the gang goes to Hollywood. They're making a movie about the Arconia 3, which is Martin Short, Steve Martin, and Selena Gomez's characters. And in the midst of all of that, Steve Martin's best friend, Jane Lynch, Saz, has been assassinated. And they're trying to figure that out. Only assassinations in the building here in season 4. I love this show. We did a whole episode of the weekend program on this show talking about like you all should be watching Only Murders in the Building. If you aren't watching Only Murders in the Building, you're missing out on one of the most reliably fun shows on TV. I know you're an Omit B fan as well.
I love it. I feel like this is the year where not only is this show has sort of like secured, I think, its recognition as like one of the best shows on television, but I feel like 2 of its stars, I feel like also have come into like their own in terms of being recognized for just how truly great they are. And one is going to seem really silly, which is Martin Short, but I do think there's a little bit of like Martin Short not being recognized for just truly being one of the greatest comedic actors of all time. And I feel like he's getting that recognition both like from the show, but I feel like a lot of social media, I see a lot of TikToks of just like Martin Short roasting talk show hosts or like Martin Short doing, whatever he's doing. And I feel like
Jimmy Glick.
He's so good. And I don't think we'll get into these much, but Oliver Putnam was one of the highest rated television characters of the year, Josh. I think he comes in at number 4 on the list, which I found a little surprising. Not because I don't love Oliver Putnam, played by Martin Short, but because I think that like I didn't think other people were like so adoring over him. So I think that like his recognition, because I think Steve Martin might be my favorite comedian of all time. Period. Yes, I think.
Are you a Clifford fan?
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
But
dinosaurs. His stand-up is just to me like so genius. But I feel like also Selena Gomez is getting some love. I think finally. She probably will get nominated maybe for an Oscar this year for her role in Amelia Perez, which I think is a little bit divisive, but I feel like she's getting the appreciation for what she does as well. So Only in the Murders, a really just solid, tremendous comedy that comes out, about once a year. It's great.
Yeah. Well, I was really happy to see that she was getting some awards recognition for Only Murders in the Building. Not necessarily because like I feel like she like super deserves it or anything, but I was just like feeling like very like bad about it. Like I was feeling like sort of like this parasocial guilt that like the Martins, Stephen Short would always get nominated and she would just be left on the sideline. It's like, come on, it's the Arconia 3. If you're gonna nominate 2, you should nominate the 3rd.
Has it been renewed? It's been renewed, right?
Oh yeah. 5th season for sure. Big cliffhanger in season 4.
Okay, fun.
I think is it literally a cliffhanger? Is that his name?
Cliffhanger? Who is Cliffhanger?
Who is Cliffhanger? No, Cliff's a different character. Cliff was in season 3. All right. So Only Murders in the Building, the 10th best show of 2024, according to RHAP.
All right, well, let's stick with television. We'll snake draft this a little bit because I do think the show is a little bit in the vein of there is some synergy here. I do feel like we're going to hit a run, Josh, I do feel like people want their comedies. This is what they want right now. They want to laugh and have fun. Occasionally the creators of these shows are going to sneak in serious subject matter. But number 9 on the list is Apple TV's Shrinking.
Apple TV Shrinking. Okay. Season 2 of Apple TV Plus's Shrinking, the Jason Segel starring, Harrison Ford co-starring.
Hasn't even wrapped up its season, Josh.
Therapy comedy. Is it ongoing still?
Yeah. The finale comes out on Christmas Day.
Oh my gosh.
This is how much people love the show, that it is before the season has wrapped. They have voted it the 9th best show of the year.
Are you a Shrinking person or no?
I started to get into it. I think I will like it. I just need to devote the time to actually watch it. It's not that I don't like it. It's that I feel like every time I go to watch it, I'm not like quite in the right, like I'm ready to binge this show, but I will get into it.
So shrinking is a little too close to home for me. I've said this before in previous podcasts, but to reset it just in terms of my personal experience with the show. So the premise of the show is a therapist is widowed in like tragic circumstance. And not that there's like a not tragic circumstance to be widowed.
Sure.
But
Well, you don't like them, you know.
yeah.
You murdered them. You murdered them. There's many
That
ways,
was
actually.
easy. Yeah, I guess. Well, that's like tragic for others, but for
Well, I
me,
guess.
woohoo! But it is a situation where Jason Segel's therapist is he plays a therapist who is widowed. At the same time that this show was coming out, a very similar situation was happening with me and my beloved therapist, and so like I couldn't watch it because it's just like I can't like imagine like the pain. I can't like go through it. And then like not terribly long after, like my therapist was like, have you watched Shrinking? I was like, yeah, have you? And he's like, yeah, it's great. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, all right, you sure? And he's like, yeah, no, this is good, this is fine. So like the people who love this show and like the way in which this show conveys grief and blending it with humor, I think it really hits for the people who like it. And of course, it's the Bill Lawrence, Brett Goldstein team, Ted Lasso team, those sensibilities. Brett Goldstein starring in Shrinking season 2. And I believe it was the great Dan Feinberg over at my other stomping grounds, The Hollywood Reporter, who wrote that this is potentially the best Harrison Ford performance of his career, let alone like the best performance on the show. It's Harrison Ford's best performance of his career, according to Feinberg. So
second most popular television character of the year, Josh. Number behind Larry David, who I will tell you, Curb did not make the list, but it's Paul from Shrinking, Oliver Putnam from Only Murders, and somebody else who I shall not name because they'll be referenced later as the top television characters of the year.
Wait, I think you're just throwing that out. Wait, so the top TV characters of the year, which was also voted upon by the listeners of RHAP as a side assignment.
Yes,
you're giving me some rankings right now. Reset that.
Okay, number 1. TBD, because we're going to talk about him later.
Okay.
Number 2, Paul from Shrinking, who is played by Harrison Ford. That's the second most popular television character of the year. And number 3 is Oliver Putnam from Only Murders in the Building.
That's crazy to me.
That's what I'm saying. I think that is. I don't know. I did. You asked me like the thesis statement of the year, and I think it's no surprise that post 2016, Josh. I remember 2016. Kind of not a great year. 2024, maybe some similarities. But right after that, we got Ted Lasso, we got Schitt's Creek. These are the type of shows that people are like, I want these on my television screen. And I don't think that like the same thesis statement yet can be said for the top of the list, but I feel like there is a bubbling of like, can you please just give me a hug?
Sure.
But in the same, the one caveat I will give is that I do think some of these shows also at a time do this thing where they are very funny, but then they also cut through with the sadness, which is also one of the things that like Ted Lasso, I think, got a little bit of flack for, was that it was like, oh, it's not quite as fun as it was at the beginning. But the shows that like Shrinking is a show about grief, right? And it's like, yeah, give me the realness, but also like don't try to hide the like what's happening behind funny things. Like give me the funny things because all of that sad stuff is happening. I feel like there's a little bit of that happening in the world, but
I think just a touch, a smidge,
a
smidge of Dune. Okay, Only Murders in the Building is number 10 on our TV list. Shrinking is number 9. Are we going to number 8 on the TV shows or number 9 on the movies?
No, let's go. Let's bounce back to the movies, Josh. And I just want to fact check, but I believe this is one of 2 animated films on our list, Josh.
Great.
And this was, I think, a little bit of a surprise, but if you kind of like look at it on paper, there's no reason why this should have been a surprise that it was this much of a hit, because it has a cast that includes Lupita Nyong'o and Pedro Pascal and Bill Nighy and Mark Hamill and Catherine O'Hara and Matt Berry, and this is The Wild Robot.
Okay, you said a ton of names of actors who I am aware of and appreciate, and in many cases adore. You said the name of a movie that I have heard repeatedly throughout the year that I actually was going to go and see earlier this year on what was supposed to be one of my favorite things to do, Grace. I like to treat myself not just to a double feature. I love a triple feature.
I also love a triple feature.
Triple feature is the best. Triple feature is the best. We should discuss offline triple feature. Maybe that's something worth talking about here. Also, if I'm feeling particularly naughty, quadruple feature.
I did a quadruple feature.
Quadruple feature is a pretty good deal.
I did it.
So I had a quadruple feature planned, actually.
Wow.
So it was going to be first movie I'll redact. The second movie was going to be The Wild Robot.
Yes.
The third movie I think was going to be Megalopolis.
Wow! In the middle, the middle of a quadruple feature is Megalopolis. Wild.
Yes. And the fourth movie I was going to close out with Smile 2. That was going to be my day.
That's
redacted, The Wild Robot, Megalopolis, Smile 2.
Yeah.
I did not make it past The Substance. It was just so arresting and wild that, like, I talk about a wild robot, The Wild Substance. Like, I just needed to sit with that. So I was glad I didn't buy tickets to the rest of them. And I just went home and thought. I was like,
I've heard this from you before. I feel like one of the first times we were ever really talking about was I think set to be this was movie theaters were opening back up, Josh.
Yes.
And I remember you were talking about going to a double feature and potentially we were going to
talk about it. It was big in the Green Knight.
It is big in the Green. It is big in the Green Knight, and you watch Big, and you're like, I have to go home.
I have to sit with this. This will happen to me.
I know. I love it.
I hit a movie. I'm like, I have to sit with this. A lot of them, like the last time I went to theaters before COVID lockdowns, I don't remember the full thing. I think it was 1917. No, it was Joker.
Yeah.
1917. Bad Boys for Life, I think, is
Bad Boys for Life. Highest grossing movie of 2020, Bad Boys for Life, I believe.
Somewhere in there was a day with Uncut Gems and The Lighthouse. Was that the same year?
That's a wild day. That's wild.
I don't know. Some combination of all of those. Anyway, like Joker 1917 and Bad Boys for Life, I was able to endure. But like like The Substance in that pole position for those movies. If I'd started with The Wild Robot, Grace, would I have continued on to feature number 2?
Yeah, 100%.
Can you tell me about it?
Wild Robot is a charming little science fiction film. It starts a robot who's essentially like a helper robot from the future who ends up on like deserted, and has to like figure out what to do. Takes care of a little, I believe, a goose. Let me just make sure I have that. That right. Uninhabited island who must adapt to your surroundings and build relationship with the local wildlife. It's very good. It's very charming. Good runtime. It's visually stunning. I think it's based on a novel, and I believe that they're doing more of these. So this was undoubtedly a hit and a success. And I think if there wasn't one other movie out there, probably best animated feature of the year. But Wild Robot, worth checking out. And it's uplifting, charming, heartwarming. So you would have got through it and then been bogged down by The Substance, Josh.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that like I had like a decent plan. I thought my plan was like, okay, like The Substance, it's getting a lot of buzz. Yeah. I'm very interested to see it. I've got a pretty tight stomach, like when it comes to this type of thing. Terminator 2 as a small child, like I'm fine. This will be fine. I was not fine.
No.
I hope that we get a chance to talk about it later, but we'll see. Okay, The Wild Robot number 9. The lists so far: Deadpool and Wolverine at number 10, and The Wild Robot at number 9 on the movies list. Only Murders in the Building at number 10 on the TV show list, with Shrinking at number 9. Where are we going next?
Let's stick on the anime because it's done the work for me, which is I just set up a thing saying there was another animated movie that might be the best animated feature of the year. It's also the highest grossing film at the box office this year. Inside Out 2 is number 8 on the movie.
Inside Out 2. Okay. Inside Out 2. I didn't see this one either. I mean, I think that I end up these days being pretty late to the Disney and Pixar movies now. I think Pixar violated some trust with me.
Whoa, when?
I think that they violated some trust with me when they made Toy Story 4.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like,
after 3, is that what you mean? Like,
yeah. Like I feel like something broke there for me. I think something broke there for me.
I feel similarly because I have the same reaction to Toy Story 3 in the sense that I am the exact age for which that story hits, which is basically I was a child during the first runs of Toy Story, and then the third one, which is about a boy going off to college and is leaving his toys behind, is perfectly in sync with the age that I was at the time. Yeah. And then they were like, but just kidding, there's more.
There's more. That's fine. And even now it's like, and just kidding, there's more again, because they're going to do a Toy Story 5. But like, how? how are you going to get these guys back together? Like, what
But
are we going to do?
at least Toy Story 4, it did have Duke Kaboom played by Keanu Reeves.
And
So
I like
that's
that, and
that's
that's
worth it.
fine. But Toy Story 3 had a conclusion. What are we talking about? And so some trust was broken. And so with the Pixar films, I'll wait until they're streaming somewhere, or I'll miss them. Like I don't have like the same like everybody has that threshold. I think with like the animated, like the cartoon animated Disney movies. Like where did they lose you? Where did they leave you? I think for people like my age, particularly, we didn't make it further than Pocahontas. And I think for me and people of my age with the Pixar, maybe we didn't go much further than Toy Story 3. But like Up is one of my favorite movies. WALL-E is one of my very favorite movies of all time. And I really love the original Inside Out. How does Inside Out 2 play in relation to Inside Out 1? Is it does it do anything to diminish the first? Does it enhance the first? Is it better than the first?
I don't know that it's better than the first. There is a particular scene, and if folks have seen it, it's basically like the culmination of anxiety in that film that is extremely, extremely well done. Maya Hawke shows up as anxiety as these emotions. I do think that that part of it works in terms of we're playing with Riley at a different age, which is more like teen or preteen at the very. I guess she's 13, so she is a teenager, I guess. And the emotions that come with being a teenager in a way that I think it makes sense as a sequel in terms of it doesn't feel like it's trying to. It is capitalizing on work, but it was done so successfully. It made $1.5 billion, Josh, at the box
My
office.
goodness.
Yeah. There's a little bit of not controversy, but obviously Bill Hader and Mindy Kaling did not return for this movie because their salary demands were not met, so they were replaced with two other actors. So I feel like that's a little bit of like don't love that, but otherwise I think this is a very good movie. That for me there is this weird thing about like Pixar animated films, even animated films. I went to go watch Mufasa yesterday. Josh
How was that?
Wigler.
Is Mufasa on the top 10 list of the movies of the year?
It's number one. I don't mean to
Did
spoil it,
Mufasa
but
get any votes for top 10 of the year?
not a
Not a
single
single vote for Mufasa.
None of people would have seen it, I don't think. I think
Disney
literally
betrayed us too.
technically the day it came out is the day that the polls closed, even though you could have gone see it on the Thursday. But you would have to rush to get your ballot.
There wasn't like a Thursday night midnight rush at the polls.
I don't think so. There was not. There was not. Yeah.
Biggest shocker at the polls all year long.
Yeah. So, I guess my point here is that like there is a little bit of thing as adults who watch television and movies who sometimes you end up watching a thing, and Pixar does have this run of being both amazing children's entertainment, but also being perfectly lovely and in fact sometimes incredible movies that adults can watch and enjoy, that sometimes you go and watch something, you're like, I wonder if it will transcend being a children's movie, and then it just like it doesn't. And I actually think Inside Out 2 probably does, but I get your reticence to be like, I gotta rush to go check out Inside Out 2. I don't know if that's going to be for me personally. I think you're totally okay. I really we recently chatted about nieces and nephews. This is one that I'm like, I'm glad it's in the world for children like my niece in terms of being able to watch it and to be able to understand anxiety, because I think it does it exceptionally well.
Yeah, I'll say two things on the subject of nieces and nephews as it pertains to this. On the one hand, my 2.5-year-old niece is too young to go to the movies and watch Inside Out 2. On the other hand, apparently my 2.5-year-old niece is not too young to like deeply, like mythologically appreciative, immerse herself in the world of Spider-Man. She's like way into Spider-Man right now.
She's gonna watch your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man coming out.
She loves the Spider-Man.
Love it.
I brought over some storybooks the other day. I was like, do you know who this is? And she goes, Spider-Man. And I say, well, do you know that this is a different Spider-Man than the Spider-Man you like? She's like, it's Spider-Man though.
That's hilarious.
Like, it is. But do you know what his name is? And she goes, Peter Parker. So she knows like Peter Parker. I'm like, yeah, but that's not what this one's name is. This one's name is Miles Morales.
Wow.
And she goes, Miles Morales.
That's so
and
cute.
Then like we kept reading it. I would keep pointing and I would say, what's his name? And she goes, Miles.
That's so cute. That's so freaking cute.
So I can't take her to see Inside Out 2 in theaters, but I am doing everything in my power to ingrain as much nerdery in her brain, her small, tiny, mutable brain as humanly possible. This is the responsibility of an aunt and uncle, I think, is to load them up. Load them up.
Yeah, it is wild to me when I learned. So the one that didn't make the list, but is super high up on the box office that we can talk about here a little bit is Moana 2. Already number 4 on the box office of the year because it had the highest Thanksgiving weekend opening of all time, Josh.
Yeah.
And I was stunned to learn that Moana is the most successful streaming movie of all time. It's the most successful thing that's ever been on streaming. Did you know this? That it's been more watched than literally anything else that's ever been on streaming.
I have a hard time believing this. But
But
that
it's
is
just
because
because
I'm not a parent,
I
and
know,
I
that's
have
what I'm saying.
been to enough of my friends who are parents of like young children who replay the Disney and the Pixar movies over and over again to understand that on like we're judging this based not on users but hours spent watching. That tracks. That does track that Moana 2 would get there. Not like cumulatively, but like as far as like a debut best of all time, Grace, this is not what has lifetime most views. That would
No,
be
certainly.
insane. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Wait, hold on. On things that have been on streaming, it's the most watched thing ever. Is that I believe that's correct.
Like with everything else that's been on streaming before Moana 2 already, Moana 2 has been streamed more than the rest of them?
No, Moana 1. Moana 1 is the most streamed thing on streaming ever. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, which is why then Moana 2, even though it's not Lin-Manuel Miranda and all that stuff, why it's so like, oh, yeah, okay.
Lin-Manuel said no to Moana 2?
He maybe it wasn't asked. I don't know. He did all the music for Mufasa.
Not ask Lin-Manuel Miranda for Moana 2
because it was originally going to be a TV show, and then they made it from a TV show into a movie. I don't know. Don't worry about it, Josh. It's fine.
I'm a little worried about it.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine movie.
I'm not getting the business of big timing Lin-Manuel Miranda.
I know, but he did the Mufasa music, and that,
Oh, okay. Did he bail on Moana 2 to do the Mufasa music?
Well, to be fair, though, again, it was supposed to be a television show, so I feel like he was like, yeah, maybe I don't need to do.
What's he doing Mufasa?
Because it's a movie that
doesn't feel like a good use of his time.
Do you know how much the first Lion King live action, which is not live action because it's still CGI, it's still animated, it's their lions, they're fictional lions. Do you know how much movie that made? More than $1 billion, Josh.
Yeah, but like, also, wasn't it bad?
Yeah, but it was just the Lion King. It was just the Lion
King. So what's Lin-Manuel doing with a bad IP? Isn't he supposed to have taste? Aren't you supposed to have standards, Lin-Manuel?
No, I think that there's this like thing of like, do one for you and then make a bunch of money on the other one. One
for
you,
so
one for me.
He's doing one for himself by doing Mufasa. Big LK fan. Okay. Inside Out 2, number 8 on the movies list. Let's do number 8 on the TV show list, Grace. Let's see what's happening here.
All right, more comedy, Josh, coming on the list. They're racked up here, defeating The Last Thing by one singular point to place 8th on the list. This is
as in last thing, as in like beating shrinking by one.
Shrinking by 1 point. This is a network comedy, Josh. Ooh. This is the very beloved, covered on RHAP, Abbott Elementary.
Yeah. What are we up to? Season 4?
4, yeah.
I think we're up to season 4
with a couple of shortened seasons because like season 1 is pretty short, then 3 was the writer's strike.
Yeah,
and then it's in the middle of its 4th season right now.
Yeah, Abbott Elementary being covered here in the RHAP ecosystem on the recap kickback with the great Chappelle and Gia Worthy. And I am Gia unworthy of speaking about Abbott Elementary, Grace, because I haven't seen it since season 1, I think. And I loved season 1. And this is just another case of like, there's so much TV out there. It's very hard to like figure out how to budget your time to watch it all. And yet I feel like probably Emily and I could like watch a few less Pacinos in a week and just like get into Abbott Elementary and keep going with that. And I like, this is probably the show that I like the most on TV that I feel the guiltiest about not keeping up with. I really wish that I was up to date on Abbott, and I know that that's within my power. This one's totally on me. Are you up to date on Abbott?
I'm a little bit behind on this. I think I watched the season premiere and then I kind of fell off of it. I honestly don't think I've ever seen a bad episode of Abbott Elementary.
It's an incredible show.
I think that the bar for episodes is so high. Like you never come away feeling like that was like not worth, your 22 minutes of your time to do it. This was one that for a while I would try to watch 2 episodes while I rode my bike, Josh, on my stationary bike. That was my plan. And I just thought that was such a delightful way to spend my time. And I obviously have fallen off of, not off the bike. I've just fallen off taking the time to ride my bike and watch Abbott Elementary. But I think the show is so funny. All the performances are so good. It is what to me feels like the most modern version of this thing we've seen, which is like one of my favorite things. And the thing that really I feel like started to get me into becoming an avid television watcher was an avid television watcher was for me was those Thursday night NBC comedy blocks, Josh. And this will like date me a little bit because I'm like, but it's like The Office and Scrubs and Parks and Rec and that
what
like
sucks? That saying The Office and
know.
Parks and Rec and Scrubs dates me.
I know.
If that dates you, and if you're saying that dates me, like I'm dead. I may as well not be here anymore.
Can I tell you? It doesn't date me as in I'm old. It dates me that I'm young. Is what I think. My point. I think is what I'm saying. That sometimes I feel like it's like, oh, I don't have the TV. Like they let me talk about TV, even though I watched The Office in high school.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is that makes me feel like I don't exist anymore.
No. You have the credibility. I'm the opposite.
That makes me feel like I've just been reduced to ash. I stepped outside into the sunlight one last time, curled up into a ball like Melisandre, and drifted away from this mortal coil.
I am so appreciative of people, Josh. Who I just saw the lovely Joanna Robinson admit that she's never watched The Sopranos in her life.
Oh, wow.
And nothing made me feel like more valid than knowing that Joanna Robinson has not watched The Sopranos.
Because you haven't either?
No, I have watched The Sopranos, but nothing makes me more nervous than like having to tiptoe around a conversation where it's clearly something I should have watched that I have not watched yet. Like we all have it. We all have a thing we haven't watched that we should have watched.
Absolutely.
But when you talk about TV a lot, then you're like, I haven't watched, I don't know. The West Wing maybe is one of my big ones I've never watched.
That was a big one for me, and I corrected that last year. The Buffyverse was a big one for me, and I corrected that last year.
But I'm Canadian, so I think The West Wing I get a slight pass on, but I'm sure I have something. Yeah.
But what happens? Anyway, I have bad news. What happens in American politics affects Canada too.
So
you may want to watch The West Wing just to familiarize yourself with a certain type of decorum and democracy.
Okay.
Great fantasy show.
But Abbott is delightful. Abbott is a delightful show and well deserving of the 8th spot on the television list of the year.
When you do watch it and like it's been a long time since you've watched it and you have to like re-greet Abbott Elementary,
nice.
Do you sit down and shout at your TV, "Hey Abbott"?
Yeah, that's right.
Is that how you do it?
Hey Abbott. Has the It's Always Sunny? This is another thing. Has the It's Always Sunny crossover happened yet as well?
Crossover. Has it happened? If it has, if it has, just tell me. But don't you dare tell me anything that's happened in it, because I will just go and watch that episode. In a vacuum.
It's coming up in the new year.
Yeah.
Okay. The episode title is interesting.
Yeah.
It's called Volunteers.
The Volunteers.
Okay.
All right. Volunteers is terrifying.
Let's keep on the television show list, because once again, Josh, it's another comedy, although I think in a slightly different vein. This is a legit comedy, unlike maybe something else that we'll talk about. Not that we need to get into that discourse, but I feel like it's a little more of a prestige comedy in that this is the HBO breakout hit Hacks. Josh.
Hacks. Okay. Hacks I still haven't seen.
Oh my, any of it?
No, I've seen season 1. I've seen season 1 of Hacks. Hacks is a show that I really appreciate and can respect the hell out of, but makes me feel like cringe in a major way. I think that I have like a very off, like on again, but mostly off again relationship with stand-up. It is probably the thing that I like to watch the least, that people of the things that people really love. Like if I were to like be invited over, if I were to be invited out to like a baseball game or invited out to stand up, the baseball game every day of the week. If I was invited to basically any sport instead of stand up, probably the sport every day of the week. Invited to a friend's house to watch a sport or watch a stand-up special, same deal. Like it just lives uncomfortably with me, because I've like known enough comedians, interviewed enough comedians to know that this stuff comes from a place of extraordinary pain and darkness that like makes me feel unwell. I love people who are like stand-up comedians when they're applied to other movies or shows or projects, but the actual stand-up is unbelievably hard for me to watch. With that being said, Hacks is very similar for that reason for me. However, it's also just in that first season so clearly a great examination of those broken people and like the people who are so dark and get involved in this world, while also being very, very funny in its own right. I know that people really loved season 3. Hacks season 3 won the Emmy this year for
It
comedy.
did. It beat The Bear, which is
Right.
weird because it beat The Bear season 2, which I feel
Right.
like,
Right.
yeah,
Which people loved. Yeah. So you would
I know.
think that maybe that would have been maybe that bear strategy,
I
Grace,
know. Not. I
could be
know.
backfiring
Could
just
be.
a touch.
Um, I love Hacks. I was I don't think I had been watching it, and then knowing that it was on Taryn's list of shows when
Mhm.
we launched the Tastemakers of best shows so far, I went and watched it in very quick succession. And I just think it's really, really good. It's so it it basically knows what it is from the very beginning in a way that I do think the creators of the show, they were also very funny in accepting they won 2 awards, and they had very clearly only thought that they would win 1. So they did a bit during their first acceptance speech and then did not have a bit planned for their second
Oh,
acceptance speech,
no.
which is very funny. But this
They
is
should have
Paul.
just done the same bit from
They
before.
should have just done the same bit. But this is Lucia Anello, Paul Downs, and Jen Statsky. And I just feel like you can just tell that this is there's another show that I think we'll yeah, spoiler alert, we won't be talking about it actually. That one of the critiques I heard from someone who was that it feels like it's evolving as it's going, which I think they're the should I just spoil it? I think you'll be
Yes,
surprised that's not on the
if it's
list.
not on the list.
It's Industry, Josh.
Okay, I'm not surprised it's not on the list. I'm
Yeah.
not surprised that Industry didn't make it. Industry, I haven't even written out my own top 10
Yeah.
for TV. I haven't seen enough movies to make one. I have
That's
seen enough
okay.
TV to make one, I think, but I haven't made mine yet. And I loved Industry season 3. I don't know that it would make my top 10 just because there's so much good TV this year, but it was great.
I
And
think that's my
has
point. That's my point about this
it
TV
definitely
year.
has like a top 10 episode of
I would
TV
agree
this
with that.
year, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, Hacks.
Well, my point is that
Yeah.
Industry, I think you can feel these new showrunners being like, what's working and what's not working, and let's get
Yeah.
rid of what's not working. And they are evolving as they're going. Whereas Hacks, I think from the very moment it is a show, it is fully formed and it fully knows what it's doing. I believe they've said this is a show that they have an arc for in terms of they actually have told, I think I heard them say this, they know what the ending to that show is,
Okay.
no matter how long they get. And they kind of don't want to go more than, I think, 5 seasons, but they could if they wanted to, but for the most part they know where they want to go. So what the next season is going to be was already very well in the established thing of like, this is what we're going to do with the show. I think the show has such a clever an articulate vision for women comics specifically, and then also the way in which both of those, the generational divide between women comics, and basically you can kind of tell that that Jean Smart as Deborah Vance is of type of some of the older female comedians that we've seen. Joan Rivers being, I think, like the best example of that. I feel like then comparing that with Hannah Einbinder, who plays Ava in that show, and the dynamic between them is just so good. And this show actually made me like viscerally mad at the choices they were making on the show,
Yeah.
in the best way,
Yeah,
not in the
sure.
like, oh my god, the writers are making I'm like, can't these two just be friends? But of course they can't be friends, like it's just like, I think it's just an excellent show.
Yeah, I love that kind of thing. I think with that Industry, that pairing,
Yeah.
not Industry the show, but
No,
that particular lane, like, is just is too tough for me. I don't think Hacks is a show I'm going to catch back up on. But I love to hear that it's going so well and that people really like it this much. It's very, very good to hear. It's a very comedic top 10 TV
It
list
is.
so far.
People want to laugh, Josh.
Only Murders, Shrinking, Abbott Elementary, and Hacks 10 through 7 as it stands.
All right, well, let's jump back over to the movie list, Josh. And this is going to be a movie that if you have not seen yet, I'm going to encourage that you specifically could go see it, even if it makes you uncomfortable in the way that Hacks does. And in fact, if it makes you feel pain, that's okay, because this is a real pain at number 7 on the movie list. A Real Pain is the Jesse Eisenberg, Kieran Culkin movie about their cousins who go to Poland to go on basically a tour of what happened to their grandmother during the war. This is, for my money, one of the best. I mean, like, I would have it higher on my list. I think it is so smartly done. It is so well written. It is so well acted. It is an emotional gut punch and a hilarious comedy all rolled into one, and it's incredible. A real pain.
How
It's
will
very
I
good.
feel when I'm done? Will I feel like I have a real pain, or will I feel like I have a real relief?
I do think it gives you both. I think that this is a movie. I mean, so this is a movie both about generational trauma, but also about these two cousins who are very much like polar opposites, who both love and hate each other. Who
Yeah,
they love each other because they love each other. They hate each other based on some of the like neurotic tendencies that they both have, and seeing both of them like struggle with both of those things, and specifically Kieran Culkin and Jesse Eisenberg playing those two roles is very, very good. Will Sharp from The White Lotus
mm.
is also in this movie, and he's very funny. He has literally the funniest laugh out loud moment in the entire movie for me. But Jesse Eisenberg had never seen Kieran Culkin act, which I think is sad because it means he's never seen Succession.
Oh,
And
had never seen him act before.
no, and he hired him to play this role solely on meeting him, his interactions with him in real life, and was like, "You need to play my cousin in this movie for this role that I've created," and it's brilliant. Kieran Culkin going viral right now for his sit down combo with Domingo Coleman. Have you seen any of these?
Coleman Domingo,
Coleman
yeah,
Domingo. I meant to said his name. I was last name first name.
yeah.
Have you seen these? It's hilarious.
I
It's so
saw one
incredible.
where I saw one last night where Coleman Domingo says, "I'm 54,"
Yeah,
and Kieran Culkin goes, "Holy shit, what do you
yeah.
do? Do you moisturize?" And Coleman Domingo says, "I'm black."
I'm like,
Very funny.
best bits
Emily and I
are
actually just
yeah.
watched The Madness, the
Oh
Coleman
yeah, yeah,
Domingo
yeah,
show
yeah,
on Netflix.
yeah,
Uh, very watchable soap opera.
yeah.
And Coleman Domingo, just what a treasure
I
Coleman
know.
Domingo is.
I know. Yeah, that show I like that show mostly because of Coleman Domingo.
Yeah, yeah. I loved it mostly because of Coleman Domingo, that when it had something to say, it
Uh-huh.
often said it very well with its metaphor and themes. But three, it often didn't say things very well, and it was super melodramatic, and I
Yeah.
liked that.
Yeah, it's
It
fun.
was like over the top. It was really OTT for me, and I enjoyed it.
Perfect Netflix show.
Great Netflix show, The Madness. But Kieran Culkin going viral for that conversation. I haven't seen A Real Pain yet. This struck me as a movie that would probably feel too real. So I wouldn't want to seek it out in theaters. Is it streaming yet? Do we know?
I don't believe it's streaming. It should
Okay.
come soon because it was a November release. I do think that this is sometimes this is there's a type of movie that I'm like, oh, you should like some people say like you should watch this movie, and then they're like, oh, I actually don't want to watch the movie about the Holocaust, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
No.
fair, totally fair. But I just think that this movie is like you do have to be in the right headspace for it because I do think this movie. I mean, both of them are both basically dealing with the the lack of things. They're both dealing with the things that they don't have, that they see the other person has the thing that they need, but obviously then they have this other quality that is both like so Jesse Eisenberg's character, he's married and has a kid. Kieran Culkin is single and lives alone, right?
Yeah.
And so they like Kieran Culkin is very jealous of that portion of his life. But then Jesse Eisenberg is very jealous of the way that Kieran Culkin is like such an open person
Yeah.
and lives so freely, but it's almost like those are each the things that like wouldn't allow them to have the things that they want. They're doing that with that through the lens of their grandmother, who suffered obviously a lot more than either of those men are at the moment, but they're still dealing with the fact that they are dealing with things in their current life. I
Yeah.
just think this is like so well written, it's incredibly well directed, and it's well acted, and it's also like very, very funny. There are a few scenes in this that are genuinely laugh out loud, hilarious, fun moments. So it's kind of like the mixture of the things that I like, Josh, which is
Yeah.
like it's very funny, but it's also it's pretty like not dark in tone, but it's very serious in tone at times too. So
Yeah.
that's my
I mean,
fave.
for me, I would be really into watching it, I think.
You'll appreciate it, I think, even
Yeah.
if you're not like, oh, what a fun time. You'll mostly be
No,
like,
it's
yeah, what a
listen,
good movie. Yeah.
like confronting the Holocaust right now just like feels kind of shitty, Grace.
Well,
You know, uh,
I will say, I do feel like
I just think like right now that feels a little raw to me.
what I will say is I do feel like as much as that's in the movie, and people who have a like my family is not Jewish, so
Yeah.
other people you probably look for people who've seen this movie who could give you I believe Dr. Amanda has watched this as
Yeah.
well and really liked it. But I do feel like that piece is so secondary to everything else that's happening in the movie, but obviously it is present. So
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
Okay, a real pain. Where do we go from here?
Let's stick on the movie list because we'll do this in snake order. And this is actually one of my favorite movies of the year. And I think a sneaky upset to potentially win Best Picture because I think it's sort of the most universally appealing movie of the year in terms of like how much people enjoyed it and how well it did. This is Conclave, Josh.
Conclave.
Have you conclaved yet?
I have yet to conclave, but this is like Father Voldemort, right? This is Ralph Fiennes.
This is every older man who could look like a cardinal being cast to look like a cardinal.
Is Jeremy Irons in it?
Jeremy Irons is not in it. He's
That's
the one.
A shame because I feel like he could have been there.
He's the one miss, but otherwise they have Stanley Tucci, Ralph Fiennes, and John Lithgow all playing cardinals.
Is it because he's already bourgeois, Jeremy Irons, that they couldn't pull him back in?
He's in something. He's in the Monte Cristo movie, I think.
Jeremy Irons probably like auditioned to be in it, and they're like, "We're so sorry, but you already bourgeois." And Jeremy Irons goes, "Rats." Wow. He was probably quite upset and used his popular catchphrase "rats" for when he gets upset. Ralph Fiennes, John Lithgow,
Isabella Rossellini. This is a movie that Josh, it has I think it's just a bit surprising in that it has tied Wicked for the most nominations for a movie. So obviously the Oscar nomination is not coming up. Yeah, I feel like this is like an under the radar potential surprise hit, and it is, I keep calling it, Josh, a reverse murder mystery.
Oh,
somebody dies at the beginning, that is true, but spoiler alert, it's the Pope, and they have to pick a new Pope, and basically you have like probably like 7 to 8 different characters who you're like, which one of these should be the Pope? And slowly over the movie, what they're going to happen is like, hey, buddy, remember 40 years ago when you secretly had a baby? Guess you can't be the Pope. And then that guy is eliminated from contention from being the Pope. And that's basically
like reality TV.
It's reality TV.
Didn't we say that we're not accepting reality TV shows on the top 10 lists?
Sorry. Yeah. And then there's, I mean, in terms of like the political tie-in, there's a very
Survivor,
much like,
the Vatican.
I mean, that's not, you did ask recently on a poll, where should Survivor go next? If they did move away from,
could you imagine if Survivor played a season out in the Vatican?
That'd be great. There's a lot of stuff about like the old ways of the church versus the new ways of the church. These like divide between which sort of like movement will be elected new Pope. There's a lot of that happening. There is a mystery element involved to like try, like as he's sort of uncovering all these different reasons why and what maybe is going on. It's really fun. It's directed by Edward Berger, who did All Quiet on the Western Front. So I feel like it does have this gravitas to it. It's filmed like excellently.
Yeah.
I just think this movie is so fun, and it is on my top 10 of the year, and it's pretty high up. So I highly suggest people.
It's very high on my list of things that I would like to watch.
You're gonna love it.
You're gonna love it, Josh. Yet?
It should be coming pretty soon, I think.
Let's see. When is Conclave streaming?
I think you can watch it on demand. You can watch it VOD right now.
Oh my God. Thank God. This is a great discovery because the in-laws are coming into town for the holidays. I love my in-laws. And one of my very favorite things to do around the holidays is to like force them to go to a movie because no one in my, including Emily Fox and their family, they don't like to go to the theater. Okay. And I do. And so it's very disappointing, but sometimes they'll indulge me around the holidays. But in recent years, really, especially in like recent years, we've been defaulting to something streaming. And it always should be like a movie that comes out around this time of year. Conclave. They're going to love this. They're going to love it. So
I'm going to tell you this. There is, towards the end of the movie, there's a little bit of like a full-blown, like progressive spin on this whole thing. And what I think is hilarious is I think that this movie is extremely dad coded.
Yeah.
Of like, and I love that they're like basically like putting the broccoli in the whatever. I don't have kids, so however they get them to eat broccoli. You know, they like isn't that a thing of like you sneak the broccoli in the, I don't know.
I mean, I understand like sneaking healthy things into unhealthy packages, but like I feel like broccoli is a big piece of cargo to sneak in.
What are we sneaking in? What do they sneak in?
Like peas and carrots and stuff. I feel like, but like you're broccoli is like that's like trying to like sneak a marble statue in through security.
Can I tell you my favorite? My brother was a very picky eater growing up, and this one does make sense to me. Apparently, he said for a while he doesn't like lasagna. He was like, I don't like, which is like, why?
Okay, so we're not.
So what a fool. My brother's not Garfield.
Your brother's not.
He also
Confirmed.
loves Mondays, which is weird.
Yeah. Okay. So this seems like a full cover for the fact that Grace's brother is Garfield. But
and my mom would make pizza roll-ups, which was just lasagna cut into strips, and then he would eat them. So my brother was a liar. Yeah, what a liar.
Yeah,
Anyway.
he loved lasagna. He just didn't know it. Does he know now?
I don't know. I don't know if we've ever ripped off the Band-Aid to be like, hey, did you know you actually ate lasagna as a kid?
Any chance he's listening to this podcast?
No, zero chance. Zero chance. My other older brother might be listening too, but
yeah. And is there
he's Garfield.
What is the chance that your older brother is gonna tell your younger brother?
My brother's Odie Garfield.
Yeah. Odie Garfield.
Okay. Anyway, Conclave.
Great.
Great movie. Check it out. So fun. Love it.
So we have a top half of the movies list now. Let's just reset. Number 10, as voted upon by RHAP, We Know Scripted TV. The listeners have voted, and at number 10, it's Deadpool and Wolverine. At number 9, it's The Wild Robot. Number 8, Inside Out 2. Number 7, A Real Pain. Number 6, Conclave. Those are the top 6, 10 through 6 movies of the year. We want to go with a 6th show, Grace.
Let's do it. All right, we're sticking in the comedy category. Brackets, kinda.
Oh God!
It's obviously The Bear, Josh. The Bear is the kind of comedy.
Okay, great.
Yeah. There's a big gap between The Bear and Hacks. Almost like 50-ish points here.
Okay, so the Emmy voters thought Hacks was better than The Bear, but the RHAP voters say The Bear over the Hacks.
Yeah, the big difference here, I think, is Hacks got a lot of first place votes, but down the line, people are like, so I think this is what happens. I think that more people have watched The Bear than have watched Hacks. And so more people, even though I think it was a more disappointing season, still have The Bear as like a very solid show. And so put it on their list at some point, therefore like beating out Hacks on the list, even though Hacks got a lot of first place votes. Like there wasn't enough of a down the line, down the ballot voting initiative for Hacks. So The Bear, I'm so completely not in line with everyone else who's like, this is a down season of The Bear. I mean, it probably is the worst of the 3 seasons, but I don't think the gap is quite as strong as everybody else was saying it. I think that first episode of The Bear season 3 is maybe my favorite episode of TV nonstop this year. I think it's such an innovative, interesting thing. I think you can basically only do if you release as a binge show. I love this season of The Bear. I like that they were trying something. The other rumor was that they only wanted
season 4 and season 3 at the same time,
which they basically did. They
did a big chunk of season 4,
a big chunk, not all of it. And also, as they were filming season 3, they were initially only greenlit for season 3, and then the creators of the show said, "Hey, could we actually do 2 seasons?" So this was actually entirely their choice to make it this way, which to me I like. This was not the network trying to stretch out as much content. And then the reason why they also did the 3 and 4 together was basically as they know that they have some of the including the future star of Jabba the Hutt's son, Jeremy Allen White.
Do you want to take a beat to talk about that?
Yeah, I'll finish with they decided to basically be able to they can film most of season 3 and season 4, and then they only have to bring them back for a short window so they can hold on to these actors before they become super mega famous, like Eben Musbach, who's going to go be in the Fantastic Four. But yeah, Jeremy Allen White, let's talk about it. He's going to be Jabba the Hutt's son. Jabba doesn't speak English. Why do they why did they hire Jeremy Allen White, Josh?
Why did they hire Jeremy Allen White to play Jabba the Hutt's son in the upcoming Star Wars film, which, by the way, has one of the most horrendous titles that you could possibly have?
It's finished filming now.
It's called The Mandalorian and Grogu. What a dumb name for a movie. And I love both those guys. But isn't The Mandalorian and Grogu just call it The Mandalorian and Baby Yoda? The Mandalorian and Grogu.
Have you seen the scene or the thing? I think it's on the Graham Norton show where Pedro Pascal called him.
Just call it Grogu.
Did you see where he says Baby Yoda and then realizes he might get in trouble for having said baby? He's not allowed to say baby. Have you seen that clip?
I have seen that. It's
incredible.
Seen that clip and what are they gonna do?
I know.
What are they really gonna do for?
So funny. Anyway,
so Jeremy Allen White's going to be playing Jabba the Hutt's son in this movie. This was reported not terribly long ago, Grace, and my first reaction was really? Really?
I actually heard that
Jeremy Allen White is going to play Jabba the Hutt's son, really? When it was right there to have him play his cousin. So I'm pretty disappointed with that.
Didn't you hear there was leaked footage of Jeremy Allen White? Have you heard it yet?
No, I haven't yet.
Yeah, I think here I'll just see if I can play. Yes, chef. That's it. Was that good?
Yes, chef. Ha ha.
Yes, chef.
Ha ha behind Chef Solo.
I don't get it at all.
Ha ha. Yes, Chef Han Solo. Yeah.
Okay, The Bear season 3. I can't remember. Did you like it? You didn't.
I
like it.
loved it.
Yeah,
I loved it.
so.
We covered The Bear season 3 on the weekend program with Antonio Mazzaro and myself when the weekend program debuted. This was like the first show that we really sunk our teeth into. And when Antonio and I choose to do that, very rarely do we end up being disappointed because we have our process. Like our alchemical process is like, if we're going in on a show, we're going all in. If the show does not reward that for us, we're out pretty quickly. See The Strain, Strigoi, season 1, which we only covered season 1 of on post-show recaps. The times that we abandoned a show that we sunk our teeth into, very few and far between. It's like that and The Sinner season 2. So we both sunk our teeth into The Bear. We did like a full rewatch of the show before watching season 3 of The Bear. After the fact, I believe I rewatched the whole show again. I know Antonio definitely did. We loved it. I think that season 3 of The Bear. Listen, I think that a thing that is difficult right now. So season 3 of The Bear, the big critique I think about the show, it will be framed differently by the people who didn't like it, Grace. But I think that it basically boils down to season 3 of The Bear was too The Bear. You know, like it was just too much itself. It was way too The Bear. We did like these extended montages with music and did whole episodes basically without dialogue, experimental stuff, long rambling Maddie Matheson conversations. We went like triples on the facts, triples is best. Like we did all of these things that were just so extremely The Bear. Jamie Lee Curtis, let's bring her back for another breakout episode, right? And I think people who loved it for those reasons. And I think the people who didn't like it will describe those things in a different way, but that is effectively what they're saying, is that this show was just too much itself. I think that this is a big problem that we're getting. I don't know about problem being the right word, but it is a thing that's coming up, Grace. It is a recurring trend, I think, that some of these like second or third seasons of shows that people really loved in their first season increasingly become themselves. They get further entrenched in their own identity. I think Mr. Robot is a great example of this, where season 1 was an award-winning hit. And then in season 2 of Mr. Robot, the people who it loses, they get lost here. Because Mr. Robot goes internal. They do another like sort of like visual mind trick. It's very bleak. The tone is much, much darker. But if you were in the tank for Mr. Robot season 1 and you start to be in the tank for like what Mr. Robot is showing us it's about, you're only going to be like really extremely delighted by that second season. The issue here is that there's so much TV. There is so much to watch. There's so many different shows to keep up with. Some of these shows are taking a really long time to come out between seasons. Not the case with Only Murders in the Building. Not the case with The Bear. These shows are on reliably annually like clockwork. So big props to them for that. But like a show like Severance, for instance, coming up is going to be like nearly 3 years after it ended is when it comes up. And so like people probably ought to rewatch it so that they're like familiarized and in the tank with Severance when Severance comes back on.
I would say they absolutely should, Josh.
And I think that I think The Bear is like a great example of that, but people are, and they cannot be blamed for not wanting to put in that additional work. Like there's a lot going on in life, let alone the glut of content that you're getting on television, to justify going back and revisiting those episodes. So I think it's an issue with the industry and the culture but not an issue with the shows themselves. I think that the shows are expressing exactly what they are, especially these polarizing ones that started off belovedly and then slowly started to see some attrition in viewer enthusiasm. Ted Lasso, a great example
Well,
of this.
can I give it my Ted Lasso take? Is that there is a little bit, and if people are listening to this, you love television, okay? So just be mindful of the thing that I'm about to say that likely doesn't as much apply to people who are listening to this specific thing as it does the broader public.
Yeah.
But my personal feeling about the beginning of the dislike of Ted, and I'm going to sound so pretentious here, but I'm like, that all that stuff that people are complaining about, oh, this isn't the same show. It's like, it actually was so in there the whole time.
Yeah.
In terms of Ted, for me, what worked the most about Ted Lasso and the way I most relate to the character of Ted was this way that somebody was masking all of their sadness with being as kind and nice as possible.
Yeah.
And that is a lovely way to move through the world. But the expectation that that person also isn't inside deeply sad, to me was very annoying that people weren't seeing that. So when there was this idea, and all of the Nate stuff from Ted Lasso to me also gets very annoying in terms of the way people are like, I don't like that he's not a good guy. And it's like, oh, but there's so much to learn from the way that Nate's character arc goes. So I don't need to belabor Ted Lasso, but if I belabor the point of The Bear is about a guy who needs and demands perfection. And we get so much explanation for why that happens over the course of that show between the people that he worked for, his family life, all of that. Season 3, to me, is the perfect example of show. And I can understand that people don't want to spend so much time sort of like sitting in this feeling for a long time. But what happens when you start to do the thing that you wanted to do for your whole life? And now you have to do that thing every single day forever. Of like, you achieve the goal and then you have to try to nail perfection every single day of your life because of the industry that he's in, which is that everybody who comes into the restaurant needs the best plate of food they've ever had. And so he has to this is his dream, but he also has to do that every single day. And maybe that was not a good thing to strive for, but if you say then you don't want to strive for it, it's basically nullifies all of the work you've done up until that point. That is a very unfun thing to like sit with and watch over the course of a show. But it is, and there's a lot of this, I feel like, of the discourse over the last few years of like the movies and shows that are representative of the artists making the show. So like the showrunners, like that's very similar of like, you know, the fact that it's very funny that this is the season of the show that's being so like panned and critically panned. It is still the 6th best show of the year, according to the voters.
Yes,
but
of course.
So it's still very good. But people are like, oh, this was bad. Then if I look at it, it's like, it has a very bad popcorn meter. It still has a very high critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. It's at around a 90%. But it's very funny that then like this would be the season of his show that like of the show that they made that is then being like panned as like the one that's not good, which is the one about how you constantly have to hit perfection at every day with everything that you do. It's so interesting and to me as like a conversation piece. And I get that. And the other piece to me is that like everybody can voice their opinion about things that are good or not bad. And the level to which like I do get that thing of like, okay, The Bear, which comes out more often than most shows, but still when it comes out, you get it for about a week if you watch it that way. And then you have to wait a whole year to get more of it. And if you didn't like or didn't appreciate the feeling of watching it at the time, it feels like it was bad when it might not have been bad. It just might have not made you feel very good, which
it definitely was not designed to make you feel particularly well. You know, and I think, The Bear season 1, you know, if you could like boil it down into like what is sort of like the top line question for the characters, like The Bear season 1 is like, can we keep this place alive? The Bear season 2 is like, can we take this place to the next stratosphere? The Bear season 3 is, can we do both of those things every single day for the rest of our lives?
Right.
So there's like not like a thing that it's like going to be like narratively building towards in the same satisfying way of the arcs of those first 2 seasons.
Right.
It's going to, by the very nature of the question it's posing, be impossible to answer. So there's a reason why season 4 and season 3 of this show, I think, are going to be so closely linked, even more so than previous seasons. I think if you're in the tank for The Bear, clearly you're showing up here for this list because it's on the list at number 6. If you're not in the tank for The Bear, that's all good. I just think season 4 will be more like this. So, you know, cut bait and run now rather than watch season 4 and wonder why is the bear like that.
Yeah.
The bear's like that because that's the show.
Well, this is an interesting segue into number 5 on the list as we continue to move down, which is this show also won up by 1 point. So this is 1 point better than the bear. But I think there's actually a lot of similarities here in terms of potentially, if I'm talking about the way in which a show that is supposed to make you feel uncomfortable, but maybe people didn't love watching the first one, but I feel like we're higher on this thing as a whole, but it's about a very uncomfortable subject matter. This is Baby Reindeer, Josh.
Baby reindeer. My baby reindeer.
Baby Reindeer.
Yeah, it's how that's what I always say when I watch this show. I say, "Oh, Emily, do you want to watch Baby Reindeer?"
Baby Reindeer. Yeah.
Baby Reindeer.
Yeah.
Based on a true story?
Yeah, I think that's still being litigated, but yeah.
We're still figuring that out. A limited series on Netflix that garnered no shortage of controversy around this. It is a allegedly autobiographical work in which the name of the creator and star, who is escaping me,
Richard Gadd.
He plays a heightened version of himself, expressing and exploring the period of his life in which he was being stalked by a stalker who became enamored of him. And that's the thrust of it. And there's a lot more in it that's just like very painful, often rather funny.
Yeah, I do think the extra pieces like there's a reason. Basically, like the beginning of the show centers on like basically why does he feel like he let that happen to a degree? Why did he kind of like he was being stalked, but he almost like didn't put an end to it quicker than he could? And there's a reason why, and you start to figure out that reason, and it's pretty fascinating, Josh.
Yeah. So they explore that, and it's a whether this is fully true or not, it is a really great character study and a great exercise in empathy. I think it is often very like chilling. It can be a real thriller at times. Again, it can be very funny at times, moving for so much of it. I think a really special piece of TV, just off the rip, just off the top of my head, like among the very best. No, there's another. I was going to say, is this the best thing that Netflix produced this year? It's on the list. Netflix had a pretty good year, I would say.
Netflix did it. Speaking of comedies, like they have, I think, like 3 hit comedies towards the end of the year, none of which I think are going to make the list here. But all, I guess one of them isn't at the end of the year. I've just been watching it at the end of the year. But now I do feel like Netflix had a really
I think a fair, like as far as they go, because often I think they just like put out like like a glut of stuff, and not that didn't happen this year, but I think a lot of what they put out was quite good. Grace, I watched Baby Reindeer in like as odd of a physical circumstance as like I could imagine watching this show.
Mm-hmm.
Between the closure of post-show recaps and my return here at RHAP to continue We Know Scripted TV as a post-show legacy, Grace.
Yeah.
I went on a little sabbatical trip to New Zealand.
Yes, you did.
And I went on an overnight boat in Milford Sound, a fjord, where it is just stunningly beautiful. You're surrounded by these beautiful fjords, water just like pouring down on each side, especially when it's raining, really beautiful. And I'm just in my cabin at the end of the night, like, I guess I'll watch Baby Reindeer.
I love that.
And I binged Baby Reindeer there. Like, what a strange place to do that. But I will never not think about. That's the thing. Like, this is a great show that you'll just like lock into and make your own memories on in your own right. But it was just a nice moment for me where it's like, this is one of the things that's great about you can take your TV with you where you go now. Where like I will have this additional unique association with Baby Reindeer that I'll cherish forever.
Yeah, I watched it incredibly quickly. I think over the course of a day, because I think is it 6 or 7 episodes? It's a little shorter.
Right. I think it's 7, 8, maybe.
Yeah, in my head, I feel like I have that it's an odd number of episodes. So 7 episodes.
Yeah.
I watched this very quickly. I think I came back from a trip and I was watching a work trip, and then I watched this just like decompressing from my work trip. I think it's just one of the most like unique stories we got this year. It's a story that we don't see a lot, which is like men who are victim of abuse, which you know and it just is, I think it has such a unique voice. The performances are really good. There's obviously like a trans piece of the story that
Yeah.
I quite like. I quite like the actress who played that role as well. I just really enjoyed all 7 episodes of Baby Reindeer that I watched. I think it's unquestionably one of the best shows of the year. I feel
Baby
a little bit
reindeer.
Baby Reindeer, yeah, and it so immediately became more than that too, in a way that like is interesting if not complicated. He's signed on to both do, I think he's producing a show on HBO and got signed on to do more shows at Netflix. So an
Good for
incredible
him.
year for Richard Gadd, yeah,
Let him eat.
based off one show. So yeah.
All right, from baby reindeer to adult something.
To adult something.
I don't know. I'm trying to figure out where we're
Yeah,
going.
yeah, adult content. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't really have more of a segue. Honora is the top 5 show of the
Oh
year, which is
wow.
that she's a sex worker who gets
Okay,
stripper,
so
sex worker. Yeah,
Honora,
yeah.
number 5 on the movies list, kicking off the top 5 baby of the movie list. Uh, Honora, that's what they say as like just a non sequitur in Italy, right? Honora.
Honora.
Is that what they do?
Yeah, yeah, they do. Also, my mom is one Nora. She's a Nora.
She's Honora.
Um,
Honora, so I was talking to the great Sam Moore recently,
yes.
who is like really locked into awards season coverage and movies specifically. And I forget which movie I was asking him if this was the front runner this year. I asked him if Wicked was the front runner this year. I assume we're going to talk about Wicked at some point. I asked him if it was the front runner, and he said, no, it looks like it's Honora. And I was like, okay, cool. And like what I don't think I said out loud because I didn't like want to like embarrass myself in front of somebody who has such great cinematic taste as Sam Moore. I was like, I have no idea what this one is.
All right.
I've heard of it.
Here's what I'm going to tell you about Honora. Honora is, I think, my favorite movie of the year. I could go back and forth on any given day. I could swap one other thing. The problem is, the more I talk about how much I love it, the more I am doing the thing that I am most scared of, which is that it's getting I'm talking it up way too much, and it's getting too much hype, and it's running. I already think it's potentially having the effect of it peaked too early.
Got it.
I can feel it a little bit.
Let's reel it back in here, just on the line, bringing it back onto the boat. Yeah. Okay. Poof. All right. Putting Honora back down on the deck of the ship. And now, Grace, we're going to rehook Honora and we're going to throw it back out into the ocean. And this time, you're going to talk about just how like I really liked Honora.
Honora is this really bad movie. This is awful.
No, okay,
awful.
We got to reel it back in. Nope. Get Honora back in.
Okay. All right.
Put it back on the deck of the boat.
Okay.
Okay, Grace, we're gonna rehook Honora, and this time when I said like, just say like, I really liked. What I'm basically saying is, don't overhype it, but be sincere with your enthusiasm for the film. Okay.
Okay.
Can we pass it back out one more time?
All right. Honora is a good movie. It's good. It's by Sean Baker. It is Sean Baker, known for Red Rocket, The Florida Project. This movie won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. That's where they give out the Palme d'Or, which is the best movie of that film. It had a lot of hype going into the Toronto National Film Festival. Lineups were huge. I did see it, and I think my worry at the time, but I do feel like film festival hype is not the same as public release hype, because I do feel like there's this thing that when people at film festivals, Josh, as you've been, I do feel like there's this like, if you can also get into that, if you're like, if you hear that a movie's good, then you see it and you're like, that was good, you are also still part of the like exclusive like first window. So I don't think you can like, the hype thing is a little bit strange, but coming out of it, so it's about Honora, played by Mikey Madison, who was, I think, also the front runner for Best Actress. That might also be changing a little bit, where she is a stripper and sex worker who gets hired by the son of a Russian oligarch to basically be her. It's basically Pretty Woman, to be her girlfriend, to be his girlfriend, sorry, and then eventually get married. And then it's basically about like that happening. And It is both a romp and also tremendously sad. I do feel like this movie, it's quite long. It's like 2 hours, 20-ish minutes, maybe a little bit less than that. I do feel like it has distinct like parts, like acts of the movie that all feel slightly totally different. But the movie is very funny. The performances are good. It's well written. It's very much like Sean Baker turned up to be his most like expensive and most feature-length film.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's quite like happy enough for it to win Best Picture, but I still think it's the front runner. Although again, I think it might be peaking too soon. Highly recommend Nora. Again, I really worry about like setting up. Like Ariel was
I
like,
think you did a great job
Yeah.
resetting enthusiasm for Honora. I think
Right.
expectations tempered. Like I
Right.
would add just like if I had one note, if I had one Grace note on this one for your redelivery of this, I would have just added like it might not be for you.
It might not be for you.
Like if what I
Might not
just
be for you.
described about the film doesn't sound like the type of movie you like, then don't watch it. Might not be for you. But if any of that sounds like something that you would enjoy, I think you'll really like it.
This was my favorite post-show recaps theater recommend when we'd be talking about like Wicked and Arrow was like, "Do you think people should go see it?" I was like, "If you like musicals, I think you should see it.
If you like musicals, go
If
see
you like
it.
musicals, you should go see it." You know,
Love it.
yeah. It's
Love
like
it.
yeah. So that's at Nora.
All right, I want to know nothing more about it because I'm going to see it. I'm going to see it.
Okay, great. Then let's go to number 4, which is a movie you have seen and maybe
Okay.
thought was too much. Number 4 on the list is The Substance, Josh.
The Substance. So when I say I thought it was too much, like I meant it.
I also thought it was too much, but then my critique of the movie is it's too much. But the point of the movie is to be too much. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I want to be clear that like when I say it's too much, to Grace's point, it's the point of the movie. And I just want to be clear that like it's not a critique for me. It made me feel disgusting. You know, like it made me feel. It made like my stomach twisted inside out. I had never been so happy in my entire life
It made my stomach inside out too.
So badly that I had to go do a pee break in the middle of the movie. Wow, a really difficult watch. The Substance. Demi Moore as
Elizabeth Sparkle.
Elizabeth Sparkle. She was a star. She now she's a jazzercise star ostensibly.
I love that you can't tell when this movie's set.
You can't really exactly tell when this movie is.
Is it 1990 or 2004 or 2020? I don't know.
You know, it's like it's somewhere in this nebulous world in between. So Elizabeth Sparkle is going to find out from the shithead boss of the TV station she works at, played by the shithead actor Dennis Quaid, and he basically says, "Well, we're basically not." As he's eating prawns, he's got shrimp in his teeth as he's saying, "It's like, well, you know, you reach a certain age," is what he's talking about with women. Demi Moore, Elizabeth Sparkle, not exactly going to take that, and so she finds herself in contact with an illicit, wait for it, substance. That might be able to do something about her aging out of her job. And without spoiling the details of that, Margaret Qualley enters the film. And what ensues is one of the best body horror movies I've seen, certainly in theaters. Not that I can think of a ton of body horror that I've seen in theaters, but really, really great, excellently done body horror that will revolt you. Not just because it's like visually revolting to look at many portions of this film, but because of like what it is sending up and sending up like our society's overvaluation of beauty, like conventional beauty and aesthetics, and the things you have to do to your body to keep up. Otherwise, where do you go and what happens to you next? Like really important questions that it's asking about a manner of things. And it is expressing those questions by way of just like this unbelievably disgusting evolution of stuff. The evolution of stuff is so gross, Grace. It's in my mind's eye right now. Please start speaking so I can wash it out.
I think Demi Moore is incredible. She goes for it so hard in this movie.
She does.
It's incredible.
Did you watch her on Hot Ones?
I did watch her on Hot Ones, yeah.
She destroyed Hot
Yeah,
Ones.
she did destroy Hot Ones. So
they kept giving her hot wings, and
Yeah.
she kept being like, "It's all
Yeah,
right."
it's fine.
And like she kept like saying like it has no flavor, so she's like besmirching like the hot sauces that are sponsoring the show.
Yeah.
And like Sean Evans like is like trying really hard, not like he always tries to meet the person's energy, but like he's not doing as well as Demi Moore.
So funny.
She just destroys it. I've never seen anyone destroy the Hot Ones challenge the way that Demi Moore did.
The only other person who destroyed it in a entirely different way is Conan O'Brien.
Destroyed
it. Yeah. So
that was like Demi Moore was Elizabeth Sparkle, and then I think Conan O'Brien was Elizasu.
Yeah, that's right.
The Omega, whatever that's called. I don't.
Yeah. At the end, yeah. So for me, she's incredible, and I do think that like not only does she go for it in the body horror sense, but it's also just like you realize why she's a great actress. There's my favorite scene in the movie is not a body horror thing; it's just this emotional scene of her at the mirror that is so memorable and so impactful. It's so good. The other thing for me in this movie is again, it's like it's too much, but in the absolute best way. That's the point of the movie. My big takeaway is that the substance has entered vernacular in the entirely wrong way, Josh.
Yeah.
People, have you seen this where it's like people be like, wow, Shania Twain looks great. She must have taken the substance. It's like, oh, you don't understand the point of the movie, the substance. So I'm a little worried that like people don't understand the point of the substance and then they're taking it, to use it as a meme, not understanding the point of the movie, but that's okay. That happens.
Taking it as a meme is a problem. I think like saying like, like if we're talking about this thing culturally to like just like shorthand it as the substance, I think is kind of a funny way to honor the substance.
Great movie.
Yeah, I think like if it's not with some touch of irony, then I think we're missing the big point of the movie.
My biggest regret about this movie is that I did not watch it at TIFF because I knew it was coming out just after, and apparently it was so fun to watch in a room full of people,
I'm sure,
full of theater. So yeah,
I'm sure.
The Substance at number 4 on the list, pretty good for The Substance, I think.
Very good for The Substance. Are we sticking with movies or going?
No, we'll swap over. Top 4 movies. We'll do 4 and 3 over on the television side. Speaking of, just a resurgent career, I think not that she was like I don't know. That's a bad segue maybe, but Agatha All Along, Kathryn Hahn and Agatha All Along, number 4 on the list. If you like having a moment, Kathryn Hahn.
I think Kathryn Hahn is having a moment. Is she having a moment beyond Agatha All Along?
She's in some other. I probably not. I don't think.
But it's Agatha. It was Agatha All Along.
Yeah, it's Agatha All Along.
Did you watch Agatha All Along?
Loved
you get
it.
through the whole thing.
Thought it was so good. Very good.
Yeah. I just Marvel burnout for me right now. So
it's totally fair.
I didn't give it a fair shake. I didn't give it a fair chance. I watched the first 2 episodes and really enjoyed the first 2 episodes. But I just got kind of like hung up on the idea of like voyaging deeper into Marvel at the time. I think that I was going to wait and hear how it was, and then I was going to pick it up. And I haven't yet, but all of the like stuff that I have grokked from reading around Agatha All Along, and like seeing social media around it, is that this was a Marvel breakout, the likes of which I don't feel like they've seen since WandaVision. Like I feel like as far like am I missing something? And like Deadpool and Wolverine is kind of like in a different category. I guess I'm talking about the TV specifically, Grace. Has anything for Marvel broken out like Agatha All Along since WandaVision? Like I don't feel like Loki has that same big pot, like beyond like this specific pop culture niche. I think like people who were not like crazy Marvel people watched WandaVision. I feel like people who are not crazy Marvel people watched Agatha All Along. That's the vibe I'm getting.
No, I think that that's completely right. I think that, and the other thing that I think is a benefit for Agatha All Along compared to WandaVision is I think WandaVision peaks much sooner into the season than Agatha All Along does, in a way that is actually not great for WandaVision. Like WandaVision, I think starts so strongly, and by the time people get to the finale, there's a little bit of like, okay, yeah, it was good. Like it's good, but I don't know. Like the finale, I feel like is like the least loved thing about that show, as opposed to, and then you get this run of basically good to not good, which is like you get Falcon the Winter Soldier, Loki, Hawkeye, Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, Secret Invasion, Loki again, Echo.
And
That's
I think there's some very good shows in there. I think there's some bad shows in
some
there.
bad shows.
But even with like the very good shows, I think that what I'm sensing is some sort of like the motherfication of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? And I think like Wanda is mother, and I think Agatha is mother. Like
Yeah.
I feel like that is a thing that has happened with these two shows specifically.
Yeah, and then I think that the way that Agatha does its season, I feel like it's a gradual run up to what it's trying to say. That whole show has not just Catherine Hahn and Agatha, but you also have Patti LuPone and Aubrey Plaza. You have a really strong cast. You also have Joe Locke showing up there as in his role as teen. It just is a very well told story over the course of the season. The Patti LuPone centered episode is maybe one of my favorite episodes of the year, let alone Marvel stuff. So I feel like it crescendos very nicely into, and I kind of think like, yeah, we could talk about Deadpool and Wolverine being in a separate category or box, but I do feel like Deadpool and Wolverine feels more like WandaVision in the sense that it's like really big, flashy up front, and then it's not really going where you might want it to go in terms of like what I would be excited for the rest of Marvel, in a way that I think Agatha all along does really, really well, which is like, yeah, wherever they want to go with this, I'm pretty intrigued, whether that's staying with Agatha and doing another season of this show, or if we are pulling out people to appear in our other stuff. I'm intrigued by both of those things. I think Agatha was really, really a really strong season of television, and I wouldn't even say a return to form because I think it might be the best thing Marvel's done.
So,
TV, television wise.
So we have hit the top 3 movies
Top
and
3.
TV.
That's right. You want to stick with television, or you want to go to movies? Where do you want to go?
I want to end with TV. So, whatever we have to do to end with TV is what I'm going to vote for.
I feel like we could run. I mean, I know we've been going back and forth, but I wonder if we just do the top 3 movies here, and then we go back and do the top 3 television shows.
Let's
How does
do
that
it.
sound with you?
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Number 3 movie of the year is one of my favorites. One of 2 Luca Guadagnino movies that came out this year. It's not queer, so of course it's Challengers. 3 tickets, please, Josh.
Yeah, I would like 3 tickets to Challengers. I think looking at this list, Deadpool and Wolverine, The Wild Robot, Inside Out 2, A Real Pain, Conclave, Anora, The Substance, Challengers. I have seen 3 of these movies this year. I've seen Deadpool and Wolverine, The Substance, and Challengers, and I do believe that they are rated in the order in which I enjoyed them, from least to most. I loved getting to see 3 tickets to Challengers, please. Just so I, to the point earlier of take me to a sports before you take me to a stand-up show. I secretly, I don't follow it super closely at all, but I love tennis.
I love tennis too.
I love watching tennis. Like my parents used to like have tennis on all the time growing up, so I would watch tennis and like not glean enough of it, but glean enough of it. Used to play tennis. It's probably the sport I'm best at. So like I've always had a real fondness for tennis. And so Challengers, like there's some great tennis movies, there's some bad tennis movies. Challengers, like as a tennis movie, so forget like all of like the lust underneath and like the angst and the longing and all of that that's presented so well. Challengers turns the sport of tennis into like an action movie. And like every tennis scene is like an action scene. Like the way that the camera is filming the ball and like filming the way that they're hitting and filming the court, and the way that it's cutting back to Zendaya when it's in, a certain period of time. Like it feels like a battle. And to see tennis rendered so excitingly, so cinematically was a real thrill. And that's like the nerdy part of enjoying Challengers. And then there's all of the ways in which Challengers is like, oh, like kind of just you watch it and you're like, oh, Challengers.
It has the most Stefan from SNL energy. It's like,
yes.
It's like this movie has everything.
Everything.
I think it's like the score, the tennis shots, the cinematography, the performances, the sexual tension, like bisexual love triangle that's happening in it, like the all three sides are touching triangle. I think this movie is great. I have it as my number two. I'm like my top three. You could basically like sub out on any given day. I have it up near the top. It is so good. I love Josh O'Connor. I love Mike Tyson. I love Zendaya. So like put them all three in a movie together. And
what did they call the hot rat boy or whatever?
Rat boy for Josh
Like,
O'Connor.
it's
Yeah.
probably like a different way of saying it, but like basically the idea being like these gentlemen could have a rat under their chef's hats at any moment, right? Like piloting them and making their decisions for them.
My friend Carl, who writes for the New York Times, made it onto at midnight with his tweet. I hate gay Halloween. What do you mean you're the tennis ball POV from Challengers?
Yes.
And he's dressed in like neon yellow with a video game. It's so good. Yeah, this movie is so good. It's so fun. My one critique of it, like the substance, is that it's too much at the end. Like, it's this last scene is too long, but again, that's the point. So my critique is not like, I don't think it's like valid or fair, because that's the whole point. The motif of like tennis as sex is incredible.
Yes.
The churro scene, like all of it became so iconic for me. You're like her.
Yeah, that's the other thing. The tennis scenes aren't just like some of the best like battle scenes. Like the tennis scenes, all of the tennis scenes are better battle scenes than anything in Gladiator 2. Fight me. Beyond that, the tennis scenes across Challengers are also some of the best sex scenes that I've seen in a movie in a very long time.
As
I
the person
watch a ton of porn, Grace. So you know.
As a person who's like self-admittedly a bit of a prude, except for that my favorite show is What We Do in the Shadows. Like somehow, the fact that like this is the perfect movie for me because all the sex is just tennis.
So it's so funny. It's so funny. It's just like tennis. Like tennis is it.
All right. Well,
I love Challengers. I'll have to know what 2 and 1 are in order to know where I would put Challengers on this list. Before you tell me what 2 and 1 are, innovation on the fly. Let's go to number 3 on TV.
Okay.
And then let's hit 2 and 1 on each list at the same time. And I have to guess which was 1 and which was 2.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
All right. So let's go to the third best show of 2024, please.
The best show. I feel like this is an interesting one because I feel like when I watch it, I was like, oh, this is amazing. I feel like people who are watching it were amazing. And then I kind of feel like I thought that people would forget about it because of the time it came out, which is earlier in the year. But no, people seem to love it enough that it comes number 3. This is Amazon Prime's video game adaptation. You just talked about video game adaptations over on the weekend program. This is Fallout, Josh.
Fallout. I like Fallout a lot. I'm really happy to see that it could have gone a lot of different ways, right? If past is prologue, video game adaptations to live action are, historically bad. And sometimes like they're good because they're bad, but never like, very rarely good because they're good. So like I have nostalgia for the Super Mario Brothers movie. It's an awful movie. I have nostalgia for the original Mortal Kombat movie. It's not a good movie. Like, this was a tough medium to adapt in a way that, yes, Antonio and I talked about this relatively recently, in this same way that like, comic book movies became suddenly this incredible wellspring for, like taking these superheroes and these characters who have thrived for so long in a certain medium or a set of mediums, but hadn't in live action, and finally finding a way to crack that. And for a time, at least, nothing could beat them. They were the best of the best was the MCU. I think we are facing that moment now with video games finally, but the medium is TV is what it seems like. Last of Us, even like the Sonic shows, by the way, are apparently great, and I haven't seen them.
I was almost going to check it out, but I just went to Mufasa because it started a little bit earlier than Sonic, so that's what I did last night.
That happens. And then I think like, of course, like Fallout is such a great example of this, where it's set in the same world of the Fallout video games. We are, centuries after a nuclear Armageddon. And there are people who live in incredibly lavish, expansive underground communities. There are people who live above ground and are mutated. There's severed heads. There's ghouls. There's so much happening in Fallout. This season of Fallout felt to me, and this is a compliment, though it won't be for everybody, it felt to me like when Westworld was at its very, very, very best, with a really good sense of humor too. because
Yeah.
Westworld never had a good sense
Yeah,
of
I
humor.
agree with that.
So like Fallout has a great sense of humor about itself, about humanity, just about like the absurdity of the human body. Like Fallout does a really good job of really letting those things rip on screen. And it didn't have to. Fallout didn't have to rip this hard. Fallout just had to be better than Halo. The bar was low. And instead, Fallout's like, it's an Emmy contender kind of show, which is awesome. Really, really cool to see.
Yeah, I think you're right about like finding its place in television, because video games, like, they're so long. And what I think is also interesting about the video games, because I don't think you can also come to a thesis about the way in which a video game series has to be adapted, because Fallout takes a new story within that same universe. The Last of Us is basically trying to do, for the most part, with some obviously big exceptions, beat for beat recreation of the video game. And I do think that what is the good thing about the plethora of streamers that have come into existence over the last 10 plus years is that these video games can find the right home for what works for them within the right thing. So that The Last of Us story is so good from the video game that, yes, they can just redo that on the network that's trying to do prestige television and HBO. Amazon Prime, which is trying to just obviously make the most amount of money, and buy something. They're doing a lot of video game adaptations because they're hoping you will also then buy the video game from Amazon.
Yeah.
A lot of book adaptations for Amazon as well. They can sort of live in that world. And I feel like the beauty of this, of the way that the show was done, it led to the highest rate of people ever playing Fallout at one time, in the immediate aftermath of the release of the show. And so it accomplished this goal of not only being a great and fun thing of television, but making you want to dive into the world in a way that you could really explore all of the stuff that's out there for Fallout, as opposed to like The Last of Us. Like, if you watch the show, you could go play the game and you're going to get the like recreating of that thing, as opposed to Fallout has so many different versions of the game that it's kind of like, okay, pick whatever you liked the most from this sort of like wide world that we showed you. So I just think it was like, really excellently done. It's really well acted. I think the tonality is one that I gravitate towards. I feel like I always need to have that balance of like light and dark. This one is so like, the gap between those two things is so hard. I believe there's very early on dogs are dying while there's like 50s music playing. And I just think like, I'm surprised it hadn't been done sooner, because I think the idea of like 1950s like American optimism being mixed with the apocalypse is so good. It's so ingenious of like sort of recreating that time period, aesthetic and propaganda over like the fake, vault world is so perfect. This is really good. I loved it. As somebody who didn't love Fallout before.
Yeah, like I wasn't a huge fan of the video game, not because I played the video game and didn't like it. I just never really got into it. And if I felt like I had figuring out how to play Fallout within me, and I don't, I have to save that energy for sure. I would be really psyched to check it out, but I'm very happy that I have the show instead that I can be watching. Grace, we have arrived at the top 2 movies of the year.
Yes.
And the top 2 TV shows of the year.
You want the movies first? I'll give you the 2 movies.
Yeah. So I want you to set them up. Don't say which is first or second. I'd like to try and guess.
Yep. It's a very close voting race here, Josh. So I think either one, whatever you guess, I think like, whether you're right or wrong, you wouldn't have been that far off.
Let me ask, is Dune in here?
Dune Part 2 is number 1 or 2 on the list.
Okay.
Along with, I feel like the sensation of the year, Josh, at least more recently. I feel like we had a first half sensation, a second half sensation. The second half being Wicked, Josh.
Yes.
Okay. So it's between Wicked and Dune Part 2.
Yeah. The wickedly talented one and only Paul Atreides. Okay.
He would mispronounce Atreides, though, right?
Paul
Atreides.
Phil Atreides. Yeah. It would be like Paul is the one he couldn't get. He gets Atreides perfectly.
That's right.
I think for recency bias, I'm going to guess Wicked is number 1 and Dune Part 2 is number 2.
Well, let me tell you, Dune Part 2 had more first place votes but does come in second. You are
Yes.
correct. Dune
Yes.
Part 2 is number 2, and Wicked is number 1 on the list.
All right. So once again, I have only seen a few of the movies on this list. So as we have a complete list, I'm just going to go through it right now. At number 10, these are the top 10 movies of 2024 as voted upon by the listeners of RHAP. You ready?
Mhm.
At number 10, it's Deadpool and Wolverine. At number 9, The Wild Robot. Number 8, Inside Out 2. Number 7, A Real Pain. Number 6, Conclave. Number 5, Anora. Number 4, The Substance. Number 3, Challengers. 3 tickets to Challengers, please. 2, Dune Part 2.
I know, it's very good.
And
Yeah.
number 1, Wicked Part
Part 1.
So, wow, that's pretty amazing. How about that? I think maybe just for that, the voters got it right. I've yet to see Wicked. I have seen Dune Part 2. I would swap Dune and Challengers, and I would swap Dune and The Substance, and I would put Dune Part 2 number 3. For me, my top 4 of the movies I've seen would be Deadpool, Big Gap, Dune Part 2, Medium Gap, The Substance, Medium Gap, Challengers. That would be my list.
Yeah. I think for me, I think I'm okay with Wicked being here. Wicked winning kind of reminds me of how, like, when I look at the end of year box office, I'm like, oh yeah, like those ones were like the most like Inside Out, and like at the end of the year where it'll be like, oh, Super Mario Brothers, like the second biggest box. You're like, yeah, okay, like it's not for me, but I get it, kind of. So I feel the same about this list, where it's Wicked and then Dune Part 2, which I would swap, but I still think Wicked is really, really good. I think it's well deserving of like being number 1. It's not surprising to me.
It's so well deserving. We did there's a breakout podcast on Wicked that's either out or coming, depending on when we're posting this. That you and it was you, Mike, Shannon, and Mari, I believe.
That's right. A
talking
fun
about
crew.
Wicked. That's going to be here on We Know Scripted TV again, if it's not here already. And you recorded that some days ago before it even came in at number 1 on this list. But was it trending towards number 1 already?
So Dune and Wicked went back and forth the whole time. Like there's like a 20-point gap between Dune and Challengers, and then about a 10-point gap between Wicked and Dune. So a first place vote and not voting for the other would have like swapped this around. I have Dune as my number 1 movie of the like officially. I have Dune, Anora, and then Challengers. That's my list. And as I said, I could swap those around. Wicked, to me, I have it at like 6th. So I have it a little bit lower down. But it is such a, like, for me, the thing about Wicked is the stuff that works so well. I have critiques about that movie that I don't have for Dune or Challengers, or for me, Anora either. That's my big difference. Even though I understand why people are loving Wicked is maybe the most fun time I had at the movie this year. So, that's different than being the best movie.
Yes.
So yeah. Do you have anything that is there anything that you watched this year that you thought or stuck out to you as something that maybe should have made the list that didn't make the list in terms of movies?
Let's see. Movies of 2024. Let's do just like a quick little look. Well, I guess surprised only in the sense that it could have gone a completely different way. I agree that it shouldn't have gone onto our list. But man, what happened with Gladiator 2? Like, what happened?
A couple things. One is I think he just made the same movie he made like 20 years ago, but 20 years too late.
Yeah.
I think is what basically happened. It just was like kind of, it's the Denzel performance in that thing is amazing.
Yeah.
But the rest of it is just kind of like, so like, what are we doing? Even though it's Paul Mescal and Pedro Pascal, like what happened? That's 22 on the list here.
Okay,
Gladiator
wow.
2.
Yeah. So far away from the top. I think probably some of the movies that I watched this year, I don't know how widely smiled upon perhaps they are, because for like my personal enjoyment films of the year, I'd for sure put Trap on.
I hated Trap. I hated it so much.
Love Trap.
Trap is at 60.
Trap is a delight. So I had so much fun with Trap. Alien Romulus, I would feel so good about if not for that one thing. there's that like one thing, and it goes beyond like moral objection for me, like whatever, however you feel about that stuff. Like, I'm not here to talk about that. It looked awful, absolutely stunningly, movie breakingly awful. The one I would have loved to have seen, but I feel like I can't imagine it made it too high up, but Long Legs would have been high up for me.
Long Legs is definitely on here. Long Legs is at number 42. So
Yeah. What were some of the snubs for you?
I don't think anything that I have is a snub. Anything I have on here is like, I get it because not enough people go to the movies to watch stuff like this. Civil War came in at number 12. I really like Civil War. I saw the TV Glow came in at number 14. I have a list. Dee Dee is maybe my fourth favorite movie of the year. Dee Dee is just so perfectly set for the time period. It's basically like a boy who's like a teen in like 2000 and like 2005, so like the beginning of like Facebook pokes, Josh. It's really good. I like it. I highly recommend people watch DD, and that came in at 15, so it did pretty well. Will and Harper, I don't think a documentary was ever going to make it to the top of the list, but it gets in there. Nickel Boys is a movie that has not had a wide enough release yet for it, but it's I think I would like it to win Best Director. Those are kind of the movies I have on my list. That did I say I saw the TV Glow? That's the other one.
No, you didn't. I was going to ask if that was last year or this year.
That's this year. It came in at number 14.
Okay, great. I love to see that it got some respect for sure. That was an intense film. Very intense film.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's kind of the stuff I have on my list. One that I thought at the beginning of the year I thought would be so high, I thought it would even be Oscar, is Saturday Night.
Yeah, that did not show up here.
It's 18th. So,
okay.
Yeah. That's kind of the movie list. I think it's like, I think that I think in the same way in the Oscar race, there's not a front runner really, even like we've talked about, there is one, but it's like, doesn't really feel locked in a way that it does other years. I think that's the same with movies, that there's like a lot of really good movies this year, but not like that's the most amazing movie I've ever seen in my life. But that's my feeling.
Okay.
All right.
2 TV shows of the year, and as like we've really winnowed down the list, it's like, okay, we could go a few different ways and there could be some major snubbage coming. So for example, like I'm just going to list some of the shows that I could imagine seeing here. Ripley, I could imagine seeing here. Another win for Netflix this year. Shogun was an exceedingly popular show this year. That was an Emmy winner. For me, it's definitely not going to show up here, I think, but the X-Men 97, which would certainly make my list still. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which I thought was an incredible show this year. I know that there are so many people who love Somebody Somewhere. That show was a show that really struck a nerve with the people who stuck by it. True Detective Night Country was very early this year, and like it feels like, gosh, probably too long ago. Just from like the popular view of things, Grace, if this was sort of like a mainstream list, you would think that maybe like Lord of the Rings could show up. Definitely not going to show up here. You would think that maybe House of the Dragon Season 2 would show up here, and yet I don't think it's going to, and I think it's going to miss our list. So that is some of my prognosticating before you reveal these two final shows, and I will try to guess 1 and 2.
Yeah, so you've said both of them.
Yeah.
And I think one of them will not be a surprise to you, and the other one will be a surprise to you. One is a show you mentioned very early on. That's Shogun, made it on the list. And the other one is, Josh, underestimating the power of the Game of Thrones universe.
Wow.
House of the Dragon is also on the list, and potentially is the #1 television show of the year, according to the RHAP audience.
It's Shogun. Shogun's the #1 show of the year.
Yeah, by a blowout. Yeah, by like 150 points. Yeah, Shogun is overwhelmingly the #1 show of the year. It had 31 first place votes.
Yeah.
So just on that alone, like it's
wow.
It's really riding 574 points for Shogun to 412 for House of the Dragon. So 160-ish point difference there. Yeah, 16 first place votes, basically, Josh.
How do you feel about House of the Dragon being this high up on the list?
I think that it's actually pretty well deserving, and it's actually the ending of season 2 that like sort of like taints.
Is that what does it? Is that what sours it for people, you think?
Yeah, I think the back half of that season was very strange for people, and but yeah, it's also like just it's 412 to 381 between House of the Dragon and Fallout. So
Wow.
people really liked House of the Dragon.
House of the Dragon.
I do think this is what I'm saying though, of like basically there's a bunch of shows from like 11 to 20 that like, so let me just like
Yeah,
start.
let's do it. Let's hear them.
Okay, so we start with number 11, which was in the top 10 for a very long time and only got bumped out at the end. Nobody Wants This on Netflix.
Okay. Yep.
Ripley, The
Yep.
Penguin, English Teacher, which I'm not going to
Wow,
tonight. Caveat on English Teacher.
The Penguin didn't make top 10, huh? That
No.
kind of, hurts my feelings.
Yeah. English Teacher, Industry, X-Men 97, Slow Horses, From The Rings of Power, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. That's a pretty strong, like.
That's a really strong list. Love
that's
seeing,
top 20.
I never would have guessed that From could have cracked top 20. I'm doing everything that I can to spread the word on From. Have
Josh,
you watched it yet, Grace?
I have not watched. Jess Sterling just binged it a little while ago.
I'm aware.
I do think, Josh, that both House of the Dragon and From, I would say we were too early in the RHAP We Know Scripted TV era to know what shows get an RHAP bump. We certainly saw this when we used to do this on PSR.
Yeah.
There was a year where like the top 4 out of 5 shows were all the Marvel shows that came out that year. Like there was a significant post-show recaps fandom bump that would happen.
Yes.
It does not feel quite as, just because I think we got more votes this year. I do think House of the Dragon gets a smidge of the like, we covered it weekly and went all out for that show here on RHAP. But From is the other one that I think at number like 18 on the list gets a little bit probably of a, which I'm not, that's just the RHAP list. That's the RHAP list of the year.
I don't know if that's what it is.
Okay,
I think that the Fromily, we out here.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We're here. And all of us, if we're doing our jobs right, are bringing as many people with us as humanly possible into the nightmare town at the center of From that we lovingly call Fromville, Fromsville, even. Everyone who I know who asks me for a show recommendation right now, I say, watch From. It's lost in a horror town that's either going to repel you immediately, which is fine, or give it a shot. Watch the first maybe 1-2 episodes of the show. If you love it, you'll love the whole show. If you didn't love it, you probably won't love the show. If you liked it, you'll like the whole show. If you thought it was fine, you'll think the whole show was fine. Whatever it is in those first 2 episodes, that's how it's going to be the whole way through. You'll like lock in. You'll vibe with it, and then you'll hit the end of season 3, and then you'll be like, I'm going to need to watch all that again.
I know I said it was the top 20, but like
huge From guy
here, 21 to 25 is Say Nothing, Interview the Vampire, Arcane, 3 Body Problem, Heartstopper. Like also, and then the next was A Man on the Inside, Silo, True Detective, Somebody Somewhere, and What We Do in the Shadows. This is an incredible year of very good television.
Very good TV.
That would be like Presumed Innocent is like down to far on, and I loved that show.
Yeah.
Like, this is a good year of television, but clearly anchored by the best show of the year, Shogun.
Yeah, let's talk about Shogun. We should not short shrift Shogun. Ridiculously good adaptation of the James Clavell novel Shogun, which had previously been adapted, but is adapted really beautifully here with Hiroyuki Sanada in the leading role. He's also an executive producer here, and it's this really winding, twisting tale of intrigue, of his character going to war against some powerful forces, all while the Anjin, Cosmo Jarvis, Tom Hardy reborn, even though Tom Hardy is still with us, but he's Tom Hardy cloned, is Cosmo Jarvis as the Anjin. Some incredible characters across Shogun, some ridiculously good dialogue across Shogun. This is a show that guns, Grace.
It's really good. It's well worth the hype that it got. It kind of got billed to me as like feudal Japan Game of Thrones.
Right.
And that's like, yeah, but like I honestly think it like sort of stands. I almost feel like that's like not letting it stand on its own as much as it does, because it's really good. The characters are both, again, like it's so incredibly well performed, and then it's also like there are enough comedic characters that I do think is something that like we talked about House of the Dragon season 1 specifically, was a big miss from House of the Dragon season 1, and arguably still in season 2, is that it's not funny enough to be a well-rounded show in the way that Shogun was. So I really liked it. I'm a little nervous that they're coming back for more, but I can't blame them for it, considering it was such a mess. Like, I feel like it's also like, what an incredible thing that like a Japanese language show that's like half Japanese, half English is the number 1 show by a blowout.
Yeah,
like,
but if
great.
I'm Portuguese, I'm feeling feeling a certain kind of way.
Yeah, we've never had this. We had a bunch of people who are Portuguese who tried to vote against Shogun. We never had that before, where they're like, just whatever. I want to reduce the points.
If I'm Portuguese, I'm like genuinely offended by Shogun.
I know.
But it's such a good show. It's so thoughtfully made. The reason why it's going to get a sequel, despite it exhausting the entire book's material, is of course because of money. But beyond that, I don't think that Justin Marks, and I'm blanking on the name of the co-showrunner, unfortunately. But they are, I think, really, really faithful to the book. I think that they are both people who really loved the original book.
Rachel Kondo is the other one.
Rachel Kondo, yes. Justin Marks and Rachel Kondo, who are married and live in Hawaii and then make Shogun together. And it seems like they have a very fun life. I interviewed them earlier in the year. They were really fun to talk to. That's up at THR somewhere. That I don't think that they would do this if not for them feeling like they have a really good story to tell, or the check is just so big. Like, so
can't blame them then.
Such an FXU number, that they have no choice but to Shogun again. Hard to blame them in this economy. Great.
Did you know there's a musical, Shogun musical? Did you know that?
Shogun musical, really?
Yeah, apparently it was from 1980.
Wow.
I agree. The one piece of this that I feel okay with is the fact that there are more books set in this period.
Yeah,
that
won't have the same characters at all.
And that to me is if they either like anthologize it and you can just like have the same people in different roles, or if they do like the thing I'm most worried about, that even then it's, again, they should make as much money as they can off of this and do more of this. But I'm kind of hoping that there's like, when we see the first like, news or images or trailers or whatever, we're like, oh, okay, like, yeah, that's what I'm most hopeful my reaction will be, is like, oh, that makes sense, as opposed to people feeling like, that doesn't make any sense. So Correct. We'll see. But even then, who cares? The show is good. I'll watch more of it.
I'm willing to see what they got, for sure. And if it's bad, I will always have season 1. Yeah. And if it's not bad, oh my God. So let's see what it turns into. The top 10 TV shows of 2024 as voted upon by the listeners of RHAP. We know scripted TV, Grace. Here they are from 10 to 1. Only Murders in the Building, season 4 on Hulu. Number 9 is Shrinking, season 2 on Apple TV+. Number 8, Abbott Elementary, season 4 on NBC. Number 7 is Hacks, season 3 on HBO and Max. I think only on Max, actually. Is it on HBO proper?
I can't remember.
I think it's a Max show, but we'll call it HBO.
I think it was a Max show, and now it's an HBO show.
Okay, yeah, they did that. Number 6, The Bear, season 3 on Hulu. Hulu showing up for the second time on this list. Number 5 is A Baby Reindeer, the limited series on Netflix. Number 4, Agatha All Along, limited series from Marvel and Disney+. Number 3, Fallout season 1, Amazon Prime. Number 2 is House of the Dragon, season 2 from HBO. The best show of 2024, Shogun, season 1 from Hulu and FX, which is officially the streamer that is most represented here in the top 10. And it is no coincidence that when Antonio and I did a battle of the streamers earlier this year, I believe we ultimately landed on Hulu as the one we wouldn't want to live without. So maybe the polling is backing up that feeling, Grace.
I only disagree with it because we don't have Hulu in Canada, and basically everything is just Disney. You just basically get everything as which I think is going to be the future of all of that content. Probably they'll just be lumped into Disney. Yep. Disney is making the case for probably, not only is it like, well worth my money. Actually, as we were chatting, I got auto renewed for another year and was like, that's fine.
Yeah.
That Netflix, and then I feel like some combo of everything else needs to like figure out what they're doing,
We'll
basically.
see. A lot of things are going to shift.
I think
A
so.
lot of things are going to shift in the years ahead. So those are our two lists here on the top TV and movies of 2024. Some additional superlatives, Grace. You want to take us for a tour?
Oh, it's an unsurprising, Josh, if you'd like to guess. I threw out so many ballots with reality TV on them. I have to tell you, I threw out a lot. I didn't throw your full ballot unless you only voted for reality TV, which some people did. I would throw your whole ballot. Otherwise, I just shifted.
We did make it clear that this is scripted stuff.
Yeah. So it is
Documentary would have qualified, and maybe we could have clarified that for the future.
It is no surprise, I think, although that Survivor is the #1 reality television show as voted on. But I do think there is a new frontrunner for the second best show, which is The Traitors, Josh.
Ooh,
which is
Traitors beat up Big Bro.
And very excitingly, RHAP Traitors was announced that it is returning on January 4th, I believe. Yeah. Saturday, January 4th, an all-reality TV contestant season of RHAP Traitors on Saturday, January 4th. Second show, Big Brother, in at number 3. So, yeah.
I just watched season 1 of The Traitors.
And?
I really had a fun time with Alan Cumming.
It's pretty fun. Yeah.
He's very good. And that one person, who I won't name for spoilers, but that one person, loved watching that.
Yeah, that's pretty fun. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah. Okay, so that's reality for 2024.
I already said the second and third most loved character of the year, but number one, I don't think it's a surprise, but Ava Coleman from Abbott Elementary, Josh, is the number one most beloved TV character.
Love that.
Of the year. Worst show of the year. Kind of feel bad doing this, but do you have any guesses, Josh, at worst television show of the year?
My hope is that I don't even know what show is coming up here.
No, you do. You do know it. You do know it.
Worst show of the year.
It got canceled. It ran after one season. Rough Go. It's in a larger franchise.
It's in a larger franchise.
It's, of course, Star Wars, The Acolyte.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. The Regime and the Umbrella Academy also getting votes for worst show.
I don't know what the Regime is, and I won't respond.
The Regime is Kate Winslet on HBO.
Okay,
night.
Sure. Yeah, that was apparently not so great.
Yeah.
The Acolyte wasn't the worst show of 2024.
Yeah.
It couldn't be. It couldn't possibly be, when at the bare minimum, it has one of the single greatest lightsaber battles in the entirety of Star Wars. If you're calling this the worst show of 2024.
I think that the problem is that most people who vote for that did, a lot of people, like there was a couple of people being like, I don't think I probably watched it. Or if I did, I forgot about it. It's like, yeah, that's probably true.
Whatever.
All right. In terms of best episodes, Crimson Sky from Shogun got a lot of votes.
Okay.
So that makes sense. A lot of House of the Dragon episodes. Season 2, episode 4. That was the Red Dragon and the Gold. That is the big battle scene in the middle of that show. The Bear, season 3, episode 1. That was actually a couple Bear episodes. The birthing episode as well. Yeah. And I feel like the last one that gets a lot of votes here is Agatha All Along. The episode 7, which I think is the last episode.
That the Patti LuPone episode?
I don't think that's the Patti LuPone episode, although. Oh, yeah, it is. Sorry, Death's Hand in Mine. Yeah, it is the Patti LuPone episode from Agatha All Along. Those are the superlatives, Josh.
All right. Grace, a very, very fun time talking TV and movies here with you on the top 10 movies and shows of 2024 here at the end of the year. Long pod, fun pod, I would say.
Very good. Very fun. I love talking about TV and movies, so I'm happy to have done both of them with you, Josh. And thanks to everyone who voted. And sorry I had to throw out so many of your ballots. Do you want to hear any of my frustrations about how people submitted their ballots this year?
Do you think that's going to be entertaining for people? Because if so, yeah.
No, it's not that entertaining. Just,
You're just like grousing. You've got a little bit of a few grudges you're nursing.
Yeah, because the way there's probably a better way to do it, but I like do a lot of copy and pasting and sorting, and then I'm like trying to figure it out, and then it's annoying when people like spell like the many ways that people wrote like X-Men 97 or they spelt out 3 body problems, or
Yeah.
didn't put the at the beginning of the title. It's just annoying for me personally, but
just the data entry. It's data entry.
It's
Classic
data
entry, Grace.
It was unclean,
It's unclean. There's unclean data here. But I loved sorting through it. So thank you for all of your hard work. You've done this over the past couple of years, again on PSR, now here on it was like a half year, but technically, Grace, the first year of RHAP We Know Scripted TV, just about in the books. Have you been having fun as a tastemaker, as one of the primary recappers of so many of our shows, Grace?
Did you know that Taryn can watch a lot of TV? There was a time when he was doing Big Brother live feed updates, and I felt like I was like really getting the edge on him about TV. And now that he doesn't do the live feed updates because Big Brother isn't on, he comes in and he's like, I watched 1 million shows this week. I'm like, maybe that's too much there.
Yeah. 1 million's a lot. 1 million is a lot.
Not 1 million, but
the two of you are talking TV every week on the Tastemakers, reviewing the latest, if not always greatest shows on TV, and talking movie headlines and TV headlines as well. So if everybody who listened to this enjoyed getting Grace's takes, this is the show for you, Tastemakers, each and every week. If you enjoyed hearing from me, I'm on the weekend program every weekend here on We Know Scripted TV with the great Antonio Mazzaro in the attic of RHAP. Up there, it's like in space where no one can hear you scream. Up in the attic, they will only hear me and Antonio scream about various things about TV and movies, sometimes video games. We did a big video game podcast this past week, but taking our decade-long partnership as podcast co-hosts to the wide, vast arena of media and how to get your arms around all of that these days. So we have really fun deep dive conversations on various different corners of film, TV. You can check that out at theweekendprogram.com. You can check out all of our scripted coverage, including the Tastemakers, at WeKnowScriptedTV.com. If you've been trying to figure out what to get your friends for the holidays this year, and you need some last minute suggestions, might I suggest giving them the gift of awareness of RHAP, We Know Scripted TV. And in fact, what you could do is you could say, hey, can I see your phone for a sec? And they're like, what do you want it for? You're like, nothing, just a little gift that I'm going to give you. They're like, oh, you're going to give me a gift on my phone? You say, yeah, just hand it over. And then they hand it over. And then, of course, like, you steal some precious data while you're looking for this part, right? Like, you got to make a side hustle here. But after you're done doing that, then you go to the person's podcast app, find We Know Scripted TV on RHAP, hit subscribe. We're not even telling you to tell a friend. We're saying do it for a friend. Hitting subscribe to We Know Scripted TV, the podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts, is by far and away the best way you can help spread awareness about all of the great stuff we're doing here, talking about TV and movies on WeKnowScriptedTV.com, Grace.
That's a great gift. To quote my favorite Christmas movie of the year, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. That's the gift that keeps on giving, Clark.
It is. Yeah. Hit subscribe. Yeah. Tell a friend. So that's the list. There's, of course, some more podcasts coming out on the We Know Scripted TV front before the end of the year, and it's going to lead us into a really packed 2025 Squid Game closing us out here on We Know Scripted TV. Once it hits on December 26th, you're going to get some really fun podcasts from Chappelle and Mike Bloom, a crossover with Nothing But Netflix, daily pods recapping Squid Game 2, which I would have been very curious to see where it would have landed on the list, but it chose to release itself at an inopportune time, Grace. So Squid Game 2 is not going to count, but it will be the scripted show that leads us into a year that will include Severance Season 2, White Lotus Season 3, Yellow Jacket Season 3, Last of Us Season 2, Dunk and Egg, the new The Night of the Seven Kingdoms, the new Game of Thrones show. So many shows coming to your TV sets in 2025. We will be standing by to cover them and talk to you about them all. Thank all of you for your support along the way. The great Jessica Sterling producing these podcasts behind the scenes. Everybody on the We Know Scripted TV team, from all of us to you, happy holidays, happy new year. We'll see you on the other side in 2025. Take care. Bye-bye.